pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing while our Deputy Mayor leads us in prayer.
Lord, the fog will clear and we will again see more clearly. But it is already clear to those who chose to live, work, and play here that we have something very special in Brigantine. Like all communities, ours has a distinct personality and character. We pray that our personality remains welcoming and open-minded. We pray that our character remains grounded in the principles laid down by our country's founding fathers. Please bless and protect all of those who protect us. I would ask for everyone to remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Joseph P. Klein. Joe Klein was a 30-year resident of Brigantine. He was truly a member of the greatest generation, having served in World War II in the South Pacific. He was also a star athlete, being the starting fullback on the 1938 North Catholic Championship team in Philadelphia. The mayor has some people to memorialize as well.
Thank you, Frank. And recently we've lost two matriarchs of two families in Brigantine. Mrs. Nan Daly from the Daly family, former councilman Dan Daly, and firefighter Tim Daly's grandmother, as well as Mrs. Bew, both longtime residents. Mrs. Bew, mother of Gordy Bew, one of our retired firefighters, and the entire Bew family. So we send out our condolences to both of those families and recognize the contributions that they, along with their families, have made to the city of Brigantine.
Amen.
Thank you, Frank. To advise that meeting notices covering this meeting have been sent and posted as required under the Open Public Meetings Act. We, prior to this meeting, had an executive session that began at 5 o'clock. We did open the meeting, and we were able to conduct some business in executive session prior to this part of the meeting. So as we always do with all of our executive sessions, I'd ask our solicitor to comment on the topics that were discussed in executive session.
In executive session, the City Council discussed certain professional service contracts as well as other personnel matters, including appointments to the Planning Board. That information will be made available to the public later this evening when appropriate resolutions in regard to those matters are presented to Council. Additionally, Council received a report in regard to labor negotiations from the manager. Additional information will be made available to the public when those negotiations are completed and a contract is formally approved by Council.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, next order of business is the approval of the council meeting minutes of 11/6/13 and 11/25/13. Can we have a motion and second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any additions or deletions for the minutes? Okay, seeing none, could we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes on November 6th and abstain on November 25th.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next, we have the approval of the requisition list, operating expenses, and payroll. Can we have a motion and second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Next, we will have public comment on agenda items only. This is the first of two public comment sessions. Members of the public are allowed to comment on any item that is on the agenda. When you make your comments, please use the microphone and state your name and address for the record, and please bear in mind that we have a 5-minute time frame for comments, so that especially with a full council chambers this evening, we anticipate that there will be many people who want to be heard. So we will remind you when 5 minutes are up, but we ask you to sum up your remarks and please comply with that framework. Okay, I'll open it up for public comment at this time. Anyone would like to speak on any agenda items? Mr. Pucci.
John Pucci, 100 Sheridan Square. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I don't know if it would be more appropriate that if the public comment came before you approved the bills, it's kind of after it, in case the public had some questions or input on the bills. It just might work that way rather than approving the bills and then maybe have to change later on. So maybe public comment should come first.
Duly noted.
Tonight you're approving the city professional contracts. I asked that they be placed on the website. It's public record. Start a new category.
Ms. Blumenthal, is that possible?
Yes, there's no problem.
And also the management contracts. The management contracts. City manager, public safety director, be placed on the website.
There are no contracts for myself or for the Director of Public Safety.
There's no contracts for the city manager?
City manager does not have a contract.
The item 13 and 14 on the agenda for the prosecutor,
Is this the new agenda or the old agenda?
the agenda for tonight.
Well,
I changed it.
Did it?
5 and 5.
Maybe it's the old agenda. We're going to hire the prosecutor / alternate city solicitor. On the agenda, it was just the prosecutor, but on the resolution, it was the prosecutor and the alternate city solicitor. So is it my understanding that the prosecutor will have dual roles, and if the city solicitor cannot do something, that would be the person to replace the city solicitor? Because the resolution says prosecutor / alternate city solicitor. So that's my question.
There, that has been a long-standing practice, that if in fact there's an issue that I would imagine Mr. Cerny had a conflict or in some other way he would have to refer something for whatever reason, we have another attorney who is designated to do that type of work.
Understood, but on the agenda, it was just the prosecutor, but the resolution states both. That's the council meetings for the rest of the year is being approved tonight, and I see a new object on there concerning limiting the council meetings to 3.5 hours. That seems appropriate. I was here the night when it went 6 past midnight. Is there a consensus of council that in fact, if council members get to going and talking about things that happened 20 years ago and whatnot, and your council meetings go to 3 hours and 25 minutes, that in fact not cut out the public comment section? And also, if you have, notice if you go to 3 hours and 25 minutes, I wouldn't want to see, if you have 6 or 7 people wanting to comment, that the meeting just doesn't stop because of 3.5 hours and the public comment not be at the end of the meeting. So is that the consensus of council, that the last public comment on the agenda won't be shunned just because your council meetings with this new approval of 3.5 hours are approved tonight?
Right. I think
That's
there'll-
not part of it, that's the
Right.
exception?
I think there'll be probably some discussion about this resolution prior to the time it's voted on.
Thank you. I guess I'm asking about something that's not on the agenda. Is it my impression that some discussion is going to be concerning the public safety director and the department chiefs?
Salary ordinance is on the agenda.
That's under the salary ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Would the fee ordinance be discussed tonight?
Yes.
Would that be open to the public during that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public comment at this time on agenda items?
Let me know if it isn't.
Right.
Norm Weiner, 600 East Beach Avenue, Brigantine. I have one question, or a couple questions, really. On the public safety director, on here it says 70,000, but 52,000 is crossed off for an interim director of public safety. Now, if this is passed tonight, that means that they're going to have a director of public safety plus an interim public safety director, or is that just words?
The answer to that,
All
Mr. Weiner, is that
Pardon?
when you have, I'm answering your question.
Oh, I did.
When you have positions listed in a salary ordinance, they are positions which you could fill. They don't get filled until they get filled. If there is going to be at any given point in time an interim director of public safety, if the salary ordinance is adopted as written, the range of salaries applicable to that position would be as stated in the ordinance. If there was to be a permanent director of public safety, the range of salaries applicable to that position would be again as stated in the ordinance. Adoption of a salary ordinance does not put anybody in a position, does not appoint anybody to anything, and does not change the compensation of any existing employee. So, right now, tonight, Mr. Howard is our interim director of public safety. He's making, I believe, $70,000 annually. Nothing that we do with the salary ordinance changes that.
Okay, so if it's approved tonight, he'll be getting 70,000 or up to 105,000.
No, a permanent director of public safety
A
would be
permanent public
eligible
safety,
for
correct.
somewhere in that range.
Right. The permanent public safety director will be getting up to $105,000.
That is possible. That's the upper end of the range.
Right, okay. Now, I think that's ridiculous myself. I don't see, and it comes into effect where does the chief of police come into this situation? We still have a chief of police. The judge ruled to put him back in service here at Brigantine, and yet he's not here. What is the situation with them? It's going to end up, this city's going to pay probably over $100,000 when the city loses this case and he has to be reinstated.
Well, Norm, in this salary ordinance, we have a chief of police, an interim deputy chief of police. So, to be honest with you, I'm not sure where the individual would fit within the salary ordinance.
That's great, I'll tell you, great. And another thing here, a month ago, I was here at council, and we had one of the council people get up, publicly say, probably in tape, that we didn't have anybody qualified to move up in the ranks as far as police and firemen. There was nobody in this city qualified to move up. Now, Mike's question is, if we don't have anybody qualified to move up in the ranks, according to this council person, I think maybe all you aren't qualified to be up there either. That's my opinion. And in the meantime,
Mr. Weiner, I'm
After
sorry,
this
which
Commissioner-
agenda item was that?
I'm not
addressed
done yet. In the
to?
meantime,
No, you are.
Well,
in the meantime, after this
Well,
meeting,
I
I
think
will
it-
be, and I'm not it's not gonna be a surprise, I'm gonna write the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey to see if he can come down here and try and straighten some of these things out that I believe are not right. Now, he might write back and say that everything's fine, but in the meantime, I will be writing the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey to come down here and see what's going on with this city. Because this city, it seems like it's going down the drain. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, any other comment on the agenda items? Yes? Sandy, if you would, state your name and address for the record and use the microphone.
Sandra Williams, 105 10th Street North. I'm here to announce a committee formed by a nonpartisan group of citizens called Concerned Citizens for Brigantine.
Sandy, I understand that, Mrs. McClay. That wouldn't be an agenda item, so you have to wait to the second public comment.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, any other agenda items? Yes, Vince?
Vince Sarah, 912 Saracen. Wanted to speak about the salary ordinance that's coming up, and more specifically about the public safety director and the interim positions that are being put in there. At the last council meeting that I attended, probably 2 council meetings ago, we were asked to look at research, look at information, what facts support our position that it's not a good position. So went through, I found something from the New Jersey Chiefs Association, who talks about how the whole purpose of a public safety director is to take away power from the departments themselves and not to add to the integrity of the departments. One of the things I found that I actually found interesting that I didn't know that I would find is I started going through a lot of the newspaper clippings. You start to see city by city that start to promise this idea that a public safety director would actually result in a direct savings to the taxpayers. And you saw a number of elected officials who made that promise. When you go back and actually look at the tax rates in the following years and sometimes the preceding years after that, when a public safety director was put in place and chiefs of police were removed, taxes actually went up again. The only exceptions I saw that were in election years, the taxes held steady. So even though there was elected officials who could show a direct savings, that direct savings actually never made it to the taxpayers. So I have a question about this ordinance. If we start to try to put this through and we create these positions, although you're saying you're not going to fill them, you have the ability to fill them. I remember when we were here and we talked about the possibility of having a public safety director, and we talked about just creating the job application to see who was there. And you know what? I said, all right, that's fair. I'll listen, create it, see what kind of applicant pool we have. Next thing we knew, somebody was hired. So when you create those positions, you are opening the door to hire somebody because you're within your right. I actually found some stuff that I found really interesting. And I didn't know that I would find this. And obviously, I try to be fair and honest. I did find some instances where a public safety director did work. And I'll be fair about that. I found where it worked. In large cities where you have such a burden on the department that they actually need somebody to handle all the paperwork so the people in those departments can continue on with the services they need to provide. The one difference I see between Brigantine and those large cities, besides size, is the fact that the public safety directors were used with chiefs. Chiefs were in place to run the departments, and the public safety director was there in order to enhance the department. It wasn't put in a situation where you were taking away the chiefs, taking away the ability of the departments to run themselves. Every single news article I read comes back to the fact that although there's a small time savings by putting a public safety director in place, ultimately what ends up happening is it's used as a tool of politics to politically control those departments and ultimately take away from the services of those departments. And one of the things we have to think about too is once you start to take away from those departments and start to take away from the services that are there, you begin to hurt your community. And it's not to say that you're destroying the departments. Some of the things that people look at when they are buying homes and they're looking at the value of communities is the services that are provided. If you take away the services and you don't provide good schooling, it devastates home values. And we've seen this trend continuing on in Brigantine for a number of years, even before Sandy. And sometimes I have to wonder, I start to look at the housing sales. I start to see what's posted on Brigantine now. I go on a website as I went through the reeval system myself, and you start to see a number of homes that are going for pennies on the dollar. So when we start to hurt our public services, we start to affect the tax base, which affects the amount of money that you have in order to provide for us as citizens. But the only people who really benefit from this are people who deal in land, people who deal in real estate. People are coming in, they're making investments on properties that once went for $800,000, $900,000. They're picking them up for $150,000, $160,000, $170,000. I saw a property go in my home, in my community, $70,000. If somebody comes in with cash, makes investment, they can take advantage of the decisions we're making here, and that starts to concern me. Are we intentionally or unknowingly hurting property values so that investors come in and make money? That's my concern. Thank you.
Okay, any other comment on items that are on the agenda? Mr. Mackey?
James Mackey, 1325 Varden Road. Mayor, members of council, good evening. Just have a question for Dr. Kern before I start. Dr. Kern, first of all, I admire your service in the Navy. Thank you for your service. And I just have a quick question for you concerning your Navy service. And when you were there, who ran the Navy? Do you remember who ran the Navy?
Yes, I
Who
remember.
ran the Navy?
The Chief of Naval Operations at that time was Admiral Zumwalt.
Right, the Chief of Naval Operations. But who ran the day-to-day operations of a ship or a department on a ship?
Was it James Mackey?
No, it wasn't. Well, no, but it was the chief petty officers. And there's a saying in the Navy called "Ask the Chief." Ask the Chief is a common phrase heard around the Navy, but what does it really mean? The rank of Chief Petty Officer traditionally carries with it the title of technical expert. This is the sailor who has been formally trained in their specialty, rate, their job, spends every day perfecting their craft, outperforming their peers on numerous exams, and takes pride in being the subject matter expert. If it's broken, the chief knows how to fix it. The chief understands the services that are readily available to all its sailors to use should they need to find it. The chief knows his or her people and can tell when something is good or bad by the change in one's tone or inflection, the way they walk, or by the change in their performance. The chief's overpowering concern for the well-being of his or her people will spark a conversation to figure out the dilemma. This may be an overt question, or it may be a deliberate flow of conversation which eventually leads to the resolution of the issue. Either way, the chief will get to the bottom of the problem. And I bring that up because the fire department, the beach patrol, and the police department, the chiefs there are no different from the chiefs in the United States Navy or the United States Coast Guard. And the thought of us not having those in the departments, I think it's a true travesty, and that should be reconsidered, and chiefs need to be brought back, I believe, immediately. And with that said, the public safety director, I'm citing the New Jersey State of Chiefs of Police. A civilian director cannot perform police duties, including conducting motor vehicle stops, engaging in patrol activities, answering calls for service, and stopping or detaining individuals. A director may not wear a uniform or a badge or carry a weapon, nor may he or she operate a motor vehicle which is equipped as a police car, including police band radios. Likewise, they have no powers to arrest and may not issue fire permits. Further, as a general rule, the director may not have access to criminal investigative reports, nor may he or she have access to criminal history information. Likewise, such individuals must refrain, unless otherwise specifically directed by the county prosecutor, from directing the investigation of criminal activity, nor may a director, as a civilian appropriate authority, have access to internal affairs investigation files absent of a court order. Moreover, a director may not examine confidential police reports or other confidential law enforcement documents. He can't be a policeman, he can't be a fireman, he can't be a lifesaver or a lifeguard on the beach. If he can't do those things, why are we paying all this money for a high-priced pencil pusher? Okay? Because that's basically what I see that we have going on here. And no disrespect to Mr. Howard, it's the position we're talking about, okay? My suggestion is do away with the safety director's position at $105,000, bring in new firemen at a much lower rate, probably between $30,000 and $40,000. It eliminates the having to hire part-time EMTs at $350 a day, because that's what it is. When you hire, you say it's $15 an hour, but you put that on a 24-hour shift, that's $340. I would bet you half the people here in Brigantine right now, the young men and women, would give their right arm to have a job that gives them $340 and at the same time protecting the lives of the citizens here in Brigantine. So I think we need to eliminate it, and let's stop the pussyfooting around, hire the people we need to hire, and get rid of the public safety director.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Any other public comment? Yes, Mike?
Mike Snyder, 10 Beach Cove, Brigantine. It's my understanding this parking behind Stake 38 is I don't know if it's being decided tonight, it's coming up tonight. Have you come up with, do we know what we're doing?
Can I jump in? That was actually moved to executive session per the advice of the city solicitor.
The Stake 38 property, formerly the Lagoon, had a 10-year contract for that parking area. Stake 38 had a 10-year contract for the parking area with the city of Brigantine. My partner and myself came in this summer and we offered twice what you were getting for that property, hoping that we could use the additional money to make improvements around that area. And I never got a response from anybody on this board. The Stake 38 it's a pretty important piece of real estate for Brigantine. We're down to 2 restaurants right now that serve alcohol. We used to have 7, plus additional restaurants all over this island. La Augusta just closed. They may or may not open back in the spring. Lagoon is closed for the winter months. So we have 2 restaurants. We have 2 choices that the people in Brigantine can go to. I'd like to think that the city can work with us and the millions of dollars that were invested in Brigantine, not just this piece of real estate, but other things, and show support just to extend the parking behind that property to us and to us solely. Joe Fumo, who is the property owner across the street, there's a piece of property that we could make available to him behind the cleaners, or I'll put in writing that Joe, and I spoke to Joe tonight before I came here, that we'd put in writing that he could use that property. His people are from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, okay? If they're still parked there, they're probably gonna become our customers. So it's a win-win for both of us. But I mean, I'm hearing this and that, and I'd like an understanding, I'd like some clarification, and I'd like some help from Brigantine. I mean, nobody else has made an investment in this town and is doing it. I can build homes, and it's easy. We can take down commercial property and build homes. It's very easy. You come on this island, you don't have any restaurants. There's millions of dollars going over the bridge. There's people that they're so thankful for what we're doing, the investments we're making. The Cellar 32, the Circle property, Stake 38. We got the Rod and Reel liquor license. We're trying to do something positive. I mean, can you guys help us? Can you guys come together as council, and not as Democrats and Republicans, just as people that care about Brigantine and help us and support us? I mean, we can take money anywhere. Other towns are offering us all kinds of things to come over there and do what we're doing here. We need help. We need you guys to come together and say, what can we do for you, instead of, what can you do for us?
Mike, I agree. We should be able to resolve this. Quite frankly, I'm not sure why we haven't. It just, hasn't been on the agenda. There have been a lot of other issues that have taken a tremendous amount of time that, in many ways, your first question was probably the most important one you asked.
What was that?
Do we really know what you're doing? the focus, you know, has to get back on getting things done for businesses, getting people back in homes, and working on the issues that we can return some normalcy back to the community. Right now, things are torn up, but we got to focus on yours. I agree with that.
I asked you to, you know, we came to that summer meeting, and we asked you guys to just take a ride around Public Works. Has anybody literally taken a ride around that property?
Several times.
We offered to help rebuild it at our, you know, at our expense, and get it done for a lot less than it would cost the city. I mean, but we don't get a response back? You don't, I mean...
Mike, it is
Mike.
on tonight's executive session. It will get resolved this evening.
Okay, please, I mean, guys, it's important.
And Mike, I don't know where you came up with the idea that this is somehow a Democrat, Republican issue. It's no such thing.
I hope not. I
Now,
don't want to,
Mike,
I hope we don't have to hear them words
I don't
in
need to,
Brigantine.
it's not. It never has been. But what it is a legal issue. And you know this. There
What-
are
what-
restrictions on what we can do with public property. We can't say,
For 20
Mike's
years
a
you
good
did
guy,
it.
we want to get, hey, I wasn't here 20 years ago. I don't
It
know
was
who's making those
illegal.
decisions.
I mean...
Look, when you have public property, there's certain procedures, and you know this, that we have to go through before we can put that property out and let people have the opportunity to use it on a license, a lease, whatever other basis. There's no hostility to Mike Snyder here, but don't ask us to make deals that we legally can't make. That's what we're trying to figure out tonight. How can we put this out there to the public in a way that gives everybody a fair opportunity who has an interest in the property to acquire an interest in the property? It's
I mean,
that
it's-
simple.
Well, I think we need to make a commitment tonight to give this man an answer, and hopefully that's something that we'll be able to do.
We, you know, every day we're spending money, and we're, you know,
I agree.
you know, these property, everything in Brigantine fails, you know? We're trying to create business that can sustain themselves,
Well, Mike, nothing that you opened failed, so you got a good track record.
but we need help. We need help from the city. We need, you guys, I mean, this was 6 months ago, or 4 months ago, we came to you and asked you. Never got an answer, never, nothing.
Mike, sometimes it does take
I'll
time.
hire the
and-
lawyers. I mean, I have counsel that can help you guys if you need help.
No, we're fine. We have, we have a city solicitor, and he has been working on it, as like the council had said. We are discussing it tonight, but I can tell you as the city manager, I believe that all, the mayor and all the council people want to make this work for you and for the community as a
Yeah,
whole.
and Joe
And we
Fumo,
appreciate
He's
the-
covered.
the
I mean,
com-
like, we're trying to, me and him are working together.
Right, no, and we realize that you're doing that. You're working on some other projects together right now, too. And, you know, we're supporting that, and we want it to work out for both of you. There's just some legal things that we need to look at, but I think we'll be able to resolve it tonight.
Please.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mike.
guys so much. Have a great night.
Any other, yes? Rich?
Rich DeLeon, I'm the president of the PBA. Good evening, everybody. I just had a couple questions.
Excuse me, Mr.
My
Perry.
address is currently 7359 Driftwood Lane in Mays Landing, New Jersey, because I can't live in the residence on 933 North Shore Drive right now. Any more questions from the public? Okay, thank you. Excuse me?
Excuse me.
Okay.
Folks, if we could...
Ms. Blumenthal, I had a question about the interim deputy chief's positions. What do they mean? Well, is there a job description, I mean, is my question.
The job description will fall under what the director of public safety would be in terms of the term that we use instead of acting, as per what I explained at the last council meeting.
Well, I wasn't at the last council meeting, that's why I'm asking you now. So there would be a civilian, correct?
Yes, it's a civilian position.
So, all right, now that leads me to my next question. Mr. Mackey already detailed the limitations of a public safety director. So now on the salary ordinance, there is a public safety director, an interim public safety director, an interim deputy chief of police, and an interim deputy chief of the fire department. So potentially, and I know that just because they're there, they're not going to be filled, there's 4 civilians doing the job that 2 chiefs could do. And those civilians are limited by state law. I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you're the city manager.
Right.
The city pays you a pretty good salary, and now there's 4 other people to split the duties.
No, it's not for other people. The
Pot
titles were,
potentially.
the titles were put in there on advice of the Labor Council because of the judgment that came down from Judge Menendez that said acting is now, the term acting is now considered a permanent title. In the past, our municipality, Brigantine, like many other municipalities, used the term acting for times when somebody wasn't placed into the permanent position. We can no longer do that. The Labor Council told us the best thing to do would be put in the salary ordinance terms calling interim, and they would be used at the same manner as an acting. So no, I wouldn't have an acting and a permanent person at the same time. It's just allowing us to have an acting position that's now called interim.
I didn't think you were going to have an acting and a permanent at the same time. But the fact of the matter is, there's potentially 4 civilians running the 2 departments. Potentially. Probably 1 public safety director and 2 interim deputy chiefs, but 3 civilians. But you did read the Mendez decision, correct?
Yes.
And you know that it says point blank in there, and everybody, it's available on the PBA website, acting is not considered permanent. It says it right in the decision, but you keep saying that the decision came down saying that acting means permanent.
No, that was the decision of the judge. He said since he was in an acting position, that's considered a permanent position under the statute of the Chief's Bill of Rights. That's what he was referring
Right,
to.
and that's referring to his rights that were violated, not the fact that he has to be made permanent just because he was
No,
made acting.
He didn't, it doesn't say it has to be made permanent because he was acting.
Right.
It said he maintains in a permanent position acting until a permanent position is appointed. So
Okay.
he's giving the the statutory protection of the Bill of Rights of a chief of police, therefore maintaining him in an acting position where he can't be removed unless he's indicted. That's when I'm saying permanent.
So that's why you want the interim deputies in order to be able to do whatever you want with them. And I think I said that the last time I spoke, without having to worry about the legal issues and their employee Bill of Rights. I mean, that seems kind of shady to me.
I'm just going by the ruling. You know, I don't really have anything more to add about it.
And as far as a labor attorney, how come he's never here?
He could be here if I asked him to, but typically we don't have a labor attorney here.
He pays, the city has paid him a large amount of money since you've been here. So why don't you just bring him in here and let him speak for himself?
Actually, that's not true. We paid about $30,000 last year in legal expenses, and in prior years we spent upward over $120,000 a year on labor expenses. So actually, the labor expenses in the last year when ARC is here, very low compared to the last 5 years average.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if that's accurate, but I will, it's easy enough to find out.
Absolutely. There's actually a spreadsheet because it had been OPRA'd from our clerk's department at some point or another.
Okay.
Can I ask, before you get any far, Jennifer, how long is the acting or interim, what's the term? It usually means temporary, and time runs out. This has been going on for a year.
Right. Acting used to be considered, for us and other municipalities, considered a temporary position where somebody can be moved out of it. This new ruling has set precedents in law throughout New Jersey, actually, where the acting no longer is that. It's considered somewhat of a permanent appointment unless, the person's indicted or there's a permanent person appointed to those positions. Interim, there's no time period. It just means in between, like for instance, with Superintendent Purdy retiring, we would have to have, if the salary ordinance gets passed, or in the past it would be called acting. This time, if it passes, it would be called interim. We'd put somebody interim until he's through his terminal leave. Now, for that position, it would be a year.
But public safety director's been going on, and again, we haven't made a decision. I've been criticized for asking for a decision, but
no, I
here we
wouldn't.
go with another month. and there's
Excuse
no
me, I don't want
decision.
to, let me sit down. I'll just have one more question.
I just,
No,
okay.
let me finish my conversation with the councilman.
Oh, okay.
I agree with you, that I think above all, we really do need to make a decision, whatever that decision is. It is dragging on, and I think, just from hearing, what Rich is saying and, some other people want to know what that decision is. And I don't know, I would believe that all council would agree with me.
I just want to say, these interim deputy chiefs positions specifically are made up, something they made up to circumvent Title 40. They're made up to circumvent employee rights. And I think before city council makes a move to pass a salary ordinance that contains titles like that, you should really look at them, because you know how much bad decisions have caused in litigation, how much money the city so far this year. I'd hate to see it continue along that track. Did you have?
Couple things. I'll say something nice first.
Thanks.
There was mentioned by one of the earlier speakers about I believe it was a study or report done by the Chiefs Association. I believe that's probably the same information that you had provided us some months back, isn't it?
Possibly.
It seemed to cover the same ground. So I just wanted to, again, thank you for having provided us that information, and also this past week received an analysis done by, I believe, Detective Glasser.
You treasurer of the PBA, yes.
Yes.
I was going to ask you, so you did get that, okay.
Yes.
good.
Yeah, and I've started to look at it, and I think it has some valuable information there, and it addresses belatedly, because we have had this discussion now for 7, 8, 9 months, but it does address some of the financial issues and gives us a perspective that we didn't have before, and I appreciate that because that's what we've been asking for. Some editorial comments in there, but, you know, that's okay. The question about how much we spent on our labor council, I do have the breakout.
Okay.
In the past 6 or 5 years. In 2009, $159,000. 2010, $129,000. 2011, $95,000. 2012, $21,000. And as of the time I got this, which may not include the last couple weeks in December, $30,000. So, in fact, the amount spent on labor, and in a year when, as you know, there have been a number of ongoing and somewhat contentious labor negotiations, you know, I think that's a very fair and a very good number that we've got.
Mr. Luker, are you saying that all the invoices that have been incurred by the Labor Council, that's what your totals are including
This is
for those
the-
years, I mean?
These are the numbers that I was given through the manager's office. I'm not sure who compiled them.
No, it's actually through the finance, through the clerk, but through the finance department.
Okay. Yeah, and what I asked them to do simply was total up, this was in all categories of attorneys as a predicate to our looking at our appointments for this year. I had asked for a history of the payments, and that's what it shows with respect to
Okay.
the history of labor payments. With respect to your characterization of the creation of an interim deputy chief position as being intended to circumvent, it's not, simply not. It's a necessity. We had never thought about it. We had never thought there would be a need for it under any circumstances. But the decision that came down in Chief Cox's case necessitated that. And one thing that you will have to agree with, because it is the fact, is that historically our community and many other communities have had and exercised the luxury, and it was a very valuable tool to have, of being able to place people into positions on an interim or an acting basis without having to deal with the perfectly legitimate rights that are created by statute for those who are permanently in a position. And that has a lot of value because, as a practical matter, and we've seen it here in this town, when a chief retired, you know, a lot of times they had time to burn off. And you can't have 2 chiefs at once, so you had to have somebody in an acting chief position. Well, that may not always be the person that you want to have as a permanent chief when you go to a permanent chief, and it might be other things. The person may not work out, or you want to keep your options open. Well, that gets taken away, at least unless and until the decision is changed on appeal. That's taken away by this decision. So that works to the disadvantage of the city, and it works to the disadvantage of the employees in the department as well. Because when you can't have what we'd always had in the past, that tool available to us, now you have to look in different directions. You have to, if you're going to make an appointment, whatever title you put on it, you know, acting versus permanent, it's essentially permanent in terms of that person being able to stay in that position, short of being indicted, which, you know, isn't going to happen. So there's no intent to circumvent anything.
Okay, well,
that was
maybe
thrust on us.
maybe I'm misunderstanding it. So you're saying that if you put somebody in the acting chief position, in the situation you just said, they're on the real chief's on terminal leave. His
That's
terminal
fine.
leave's finished, he's retired. You have to make that acting guy the chief.
No, it's not
Okay.
that, but in
But you can't remove him
practical
from
terms,
acting.
he might as well be a permanent chief because the decision stated that a person in the title or with the title of an acting chief is entitled to exercise all of the rights and protections that a formally designated appointed permanent chief would.
Yes.
So in all intents
No,
and
I agree
purposes,
with you with
it's the
that
same
one.
thing. And that's something that had not historically been the case. There was always the freedom, and I'm not going to get into the particulars, obviously, of the circumstance came out of your department, but there was always the freedom in the past that if someone was in an acting position, and for whatever reason, the appointing authority, you know, be it the manager or whomever in whatever form of government, would have the right simply to say, you're no longer acting, I'll put somebody else in acting, or I'll have nobody in acting, whatever it might be. You simply can't do that anymore. And, you know, that is an impediment to running both the department and to running the city generally. So it's, you know, there's actually common ground there in wanting to clarify that. The alternative is, well, the status quo that we have now, which is that under that decision, if you are there in the title of acting, and there was no, and you've read the decision, I know, there was no timetable given there. So the judge didn't analyze it in terms of, you know, there's a bright line cutoff. For instance, if a person's been in a position 30 days, 6 days, 90 days, whatever, at that point, they assume all of the privileges of permanent. We didn't get that. Simply said that, you know, on a not really analyzed consideration of all the factors in that case, that it fell on that side of it, that it, you know, he should be deemed to be a permanent, or at least entitled to those.
So he wouldn't be able to be removed. Let's say he did do something wrong and you followed the proper chains to remove him.
He would be subject to discipline the same as a permanent chief would be.
Okay, so long as the rules were followed.
Right, well, and again, as you know, historically, chiefs or acting chiefs could be removed without needing to go through disciplinary processes. You know, if you just feel they're not doing the job, you could put them back in their former position and put somebody else in that position, and there was no issue with that. Well, now it has to follow the disciplinary, we're told by the court, it would have to follow the same disciplinary procedures that would apply to a formally appointed permanent chief. Which, and also going along with that is that, as you know, to remove a chief, it doesn't happen, because there has to be a really serious infraction, something, you know, to the level of an indictable offense.
Okay.
Rich, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If I could just, I know we're going to have a lot of discussion this evening on the salary ordinance, and there's also a report that we received this afternoon about the financial analysis breakdown on potential of hiring part-time firefighters versus having full-time firefighters. We look at this ordinance, I think we were heading in the direction where we were having a rather candid conversation about what exactly are we trying to achieve, you know, with this ordinance. And I think that's the question that most people in the audience have as well. You have interim, and then you have permanent. You have some positions that don't even exist. We haven't had a deputy fire chief that I'm aware of in the last 10 years. We haven't had a deputy police chief in the last 10 years. I don't know where those positions came from. We have interim deputies now, but we don't have permanent deputies. We have a chief of police, but we don't have an interim chief of police, unless I'm missing that one. We have a public safety director, and we have an interim public safety director. I think we're confusing the public to the point where, quite frankly, they don't know what we're trying to achieve here.
Makes two of us, though.
The question is, for this council, very clear in my mind. Do you want chiefs, or do you want a public safety director? And I don't think we have to go through all these gymnastics in order to actually achieve one of those two goals. My fear is you put this stuff in the ordinance, you wind up getting someone in that position. And we've seen that happen. Quite frankly, I don't know how a position gets in the ordinance if it's not in the code, in the salary ordinance, because the police department is spelled out exactly what officers are in that department in the city code. But I think we need to be honest about how we feel about what positions we really want going forward. I think we're putting a lot of people's lives in a state of turmoil. A lot of people in the public have questions about where we're going, and we don't have a lot of real solid research either. And I've said before, I think we have 100 years of research that tells us that chiefs work, but we don't have a lot of research that tells us that a public safety director works. So hopefully when we get to this ordinance, we'll get some clarity from the people who are going to vote on it, and we can move forward. And I'm going to ask for opinions, you know, about what people really think, you know, in terms of what they're trying to achieve with this particular ordinance. Because, you know, you keep peeling away. I hear, you know, it's financial. I hear it's that we don't have the people with the managerial skills. The finances, I've seen both sides of the argument. I know we have people with the managerial skills. I know these folks. I'm confused, and I'm sitting here. I'm probably as involved as anyone in this particular process. If we're confused, the public's got to be confused. So we really need what the real motivation behind this is and where the decisions are going. Because this is just absolute chaos.
I think I'll have an answer for you, Mayor, and for Mr. Weiner, when we have council mayor comments. I think I'll have an answer as to where we're going, why we're going there, what we're trying to accomplish when we have mayor council comments, and I'll specifically try to answer Mr. Weiner's question to me.
Tiger? Excuse me, I'd like to leave, I apologize. Yeah, no problem. Chuck? I can't take it anymore.
Wait, do I have that option?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Tiger?
Ty Platt, 157 Coolidge Avenue, Epseek, I represent the firefighters.
Tiger, can you tell me what you do in the Air Force?
I am a KC-10, which is an air refueling tanker, boom operator, and I'm the assistant chief of my squadron. And I've been doing it 22 years now.
And do you think you have the skills to be chief?
I think there's numerous people in our department that have the skills to be chief. College-educated people.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm sorry, what?
What we expect you to say, right?
Actually,
I just spoke the truth, that's all.
Actually,
You can speak later.
We want to stay on track here, but I think that was a very good answer. Yeah. Yeah. Tiger?
I have a question for the city manager, Ms. Blumenthal. A moment ago, I just want you to clarify something for me. Did you just say the interim deputy chief of police and fire is a civilian position? Is that what you just
The
said?
interim, yes, they're civilian.
So you're going to bring another civilian into the
Oh,
fire
I'm
department?
sorry, they're not civilian, they'll be sworn, but they'll be management employees rather than being
Oh,
union.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So they're not civilian?
No.
Okay,
I'm sorry about that.
no problem. Can somebody explain to me what the difference between a regular public safety director and an interim public safety director is? Is it their schedule? Is it how long they're going to be working here? Can somebody explain that to me, please?
It just means that they haven't been appointed to a permanent position.
Okay. So where would they fall into the City of Brigantine's handbook for types of employment and eligibility for benefits? Would they be a probationary employee, a regular full-time employee, a regular part-time employee, a temporary full-time employee, a temporary part-time employee, or an intermittent employee? I'm just curious, where do they fall into this?
Well, actually, that would be a personnel discussion that I wouldn't discuss in this forum.
That's why I'm
However,
asking.
No, I wouldn't discuss in a council forum. However, I did receive your email.
That
and-
was my next question. So.
Yeah, I did receive your email, and we do have a meeting already scheduled for the 21st. I think it's best if we spend time at that meeting talking about these type of personnel issues. In addition, we've been revising over the last year the personnel policy, and I think you made a lot of good points in your email. So I am taking everything that you said into consideration, that these things do need more clarity in the personnel policy, and I'm working on creating that clarity moving forward.
So in other words, I brought to your attention something that you guys were violating, and now you're going to decide to change it in the bottom of the ninth. You're going to change the rules because you realize my email, which went unanswered for 3 weeks, which I ended up CCing all of council to show that I'm trying to have a dialogue. And if we were going to meet, first of all,
Tiger,
we're meeting on the 21st to
right, we're
discuss
meeting on the
contract,
21st,
not to
and
discuss what I asked
I
in the
did not
email.
say that we are in violation of anything. I said that I'm taking your
No, I
comments
said
into
that.
consideration. And as far as you asking me these questions, these are personnel questions. They are not, questions as per the union. When we meet, you're a representative of the union. You're
Correct.
not, you're making comments on a personnel policy that's involving management staff. So, and I understand your
You're right. And you
concern.
already made that clear that I'm not management material, so I would never do that.
Yeah. So, and what I'm saying is that, but I'm still taking into consideration.
Okay.
And
So-
that's where we are right now. So there is
Okay.
no, the 21st we're meeting, so why
Yes,
don't we have this
we
dialogue
are.
then?
You are correct. I'm not management staff or management material. However, Director Howard is now the management for our department. And so why isn't he bringing this up then? Why has it got to be me to find this and bring this to the city's attention?
No, this has been brought up with the management staff and with the labor attorney. You're bringing it up in an open dialogue at a council meeting, which is inappropriate.
I think it's very appropriate.
We didn't violate the law. There are accusations that are unfounded.
Folks,
Okay.
I ask you to refrain from calling out from your seats so we can move the meeting forward.
Okay. At the last meeting, I also asked what the definition of interim was, and I said I'd looked it up in the dictionary, and interim means not permanent, not lasting, a temporary or provisional arrangement. So when you hired Mr. Howard in June of last year, you said, I did not hire a permanent public safety director. He's here to mentor the captains in the departments and make them management thinkers, I believe was your exact words, which none of that has happened yet. We're still waiting. But, he's a temporary employee. He is not a permanent full-time employee of the city. So you are in violation. And if I have to be the one to call it out, I will. But you are, on page 21 of the city's handbook, in violation with an interim director that's here now, 7 months? When it says temporary full-time employee, somebody works 6 months or less. And you even said he'd only be here 3 months, and then you'd make a decision. Then you said it's because of the petition that's out there. I do have another question, though. The part-time firefighters, well, it's actually a statement, I guess, not a question. They're not going to work here. We have full-time trained professional staff that are here 24 hours a day that were born and raised and grew up on this island and know this island like the back of their hand. They could close their eyes and find their way to any point on this island. You tell them an address, they could probably tell you who lives next door and what color their house is because they went to school with them, or they grew up with them, or somebody used to babysit them, or it's this one's grandmother, or whatever it may be. You're going to bring part-time firefighters into this city. You've advertised in 4 counties for them, Cape May, Gloucester, Ocean, and Atlantic counties. And you're going to get somebody to come in here, and the first time they step foot on this island, maybe when they drop their application off. And then as a captain, as part of the command staff of the fire department, I'm going to have to now babysit this person because I can't send him on a truck or an ambulance or anywhere by himself. Because when I tell him to go, there's a house on Jenkins Parkway. I need you to go check the wire in front of it. He goes, I don't know where Jenkins Parkway is. It's probably out by the bridge because it's got to be a fast road. It's called Parkway. No, it's not. They're not going to be able to find the streets that we know. Where's Kirby Place? Where's Founds? All these streets. They're not going to know where they're at. So I'm going to have to hand them a map or give them a Garmin. So they got to find their way around the island. And you know that our response time is 3 minutes and 12 seconds on average to anywhere on this island. But not when there's a part-timer driving the truck because they don't know where they're going. It's going to be a liability to us, to you, all of you, and to all of you if you go through with this. This is going to backfire, and it's going to fall right into all of your laps and all the taxpayers' laps to pay the burden for the mistakes you're making tonight.
Any other comment? Yes, sir.
Jim Conti, 108 North Roosevelt Boulevard. I live in Brigantine, and I pay taxes in Brigantine. No relation to Mr. Howard, okay? But coming to these meetings, I'm finding that the police, firemen, do not like this job. Not him personally, but they're against this job. They want the chiefs. I would just wish, whether it be the council, the fire department, the police department, if they're so interested in the taxpayers of Brigantine, put out facts. Is it unsafe? The safety has gotten worse since this guy's got this job? Prove it to us, not your opinion. Show the facts. If you put the facts on the table, that it's got more dangerous down here since this man's got the job, then we got to get rid of this guy. That's all I'm asking for. And to talk about part-timers, 2 people got up here and do not live in Brigantine. So, well, that's not my point, okay? That's not my point. My point is, you hire a part-timer, he's got to learn like everybody else. And if he's got right supervision, they will teach him the streets of Brigantine. You don't have to live in Brigantine. You don't have to live in Brigantine to be able to be a fireman or to work for Brigantine. It's obvious there are some people that work for Brigantine, they're on a salary, police, firemen, municipality workers, they all don't live in Brigantine, do they? Well, if that's the rule, if that's the way it should be, fire them and just hire Brigantine people. Because that's where my tax dollars are going. And to talk about the price of real estate and schools, I have no children. My son's is over 30. But what's going to run me out of Brigantine is the taxes. And you're paying this man $70,000. Well, guess what? It was published in the paper. I can show you a copy of the salaries of Brigantine. $70,000 is cheap. Paying this guy, compared to what you're paying firemen, policemen, municipality workers, this guy's dirt cheap. And there's no relation to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Yes, Jane?
My name's Jane Peltonen. I live at 203 11th Street North. And I am addressing the question of hiring chiefs versus a public safety director. And I would like to quote the newest research that has come out in this town that I have seen at our Civic Center on Saturday. And that is a documentary put out by Bev Bliss from the Atlantic County Library. Videographer was Taylor Van Ness. So many of your faces were in this video. And the one thing that I, as a resident, felt sitting there watching everybody that were Sandy victims, people who helped the Sandy victims, was that the firemen, the police, the city workers, and the public works were our heroes. That needs to be recognized and respected, because the people in this town gave you how they felt about the services they received. I thank you all, my heroes.
Thank you, Jane. And I saw all of those stories that people in Brigantine told about their experiences, and I concur with you. I would say majority of the people talked about the police, fire, and public works and the job that they did during Superstorm Sandy. The majority of people. Any other public comment on agenda items? Yes, Mrs. Fable.
Hi, my name is Jackie Fable. I live at 4 Hudson Cove. I've been a resident of Brigantine for 39 years. And I sit here, thank you, all right. I can recall being at meetings when we had commissioners. And I look at everything here, you know, and things haven't really changed much, except the commissioners way back then, they were Brigantine residents all the time. They got up, they said what they had to because they felt Brigantine is where they lived. They wanted to do what is best for Brigantine. I'd like to say that is still the case. I have grandchildren that go to school here in Brigantine. I have a son who lives here in Brigantine. My other sons do not live in Brigantine. I've seen many changes here. I am not happy with a lot of them, as many are not. But when we are talking about replacing our public service, the fire department, the beach patrol, the police people, I go back, way back with a lot of these. Before they became the positions, they went to school with my sons. They grew up. They cared enough to stay and take those positions. I had an incident a couple weeks ago where I went to the police station about something I received in the mail. The first 4 people that came out to inquire while I was there, oh, you're so-and-so's mother. I remember we went to school with those kids. And yes, they did. It's a little bit of a heartwarming experience when the people who care and work for Brigantine grew up here. They're talking about a deputy to oversee everything. Has this man ever gone on a fire call? Has he ever answered a police response? Has he ever gone out on a rescue in Brigantine beaches? One of my grandsons is a lifeguard. Worry about him every day when he went to work. Worry about my sons that are all grown. I feel experience, if you're going to put somebody in a position, let them have the background of what they are looking into. I had an incident many years ago where we had a fire in our house, and on a fall night, New Year's Eve, fire chief came down with the whole course of the people. We got our children out. I had foster children at the time. They went out. We were the only ones living on Hudson Cove. I had to get all of my family into a neighbor on Hudson Drive. The chief came into the house along with the workers. Was a fire in the dryer, and the whole house filled with smoke. And the fire chief said to me, "Jackie, your smoke alarms never went off." I never caught that. He did. And it's true. We had put the smoke alarms up recently prior to that, and they never went off. He told me what to do to go back to where we bought them, which was Sears, I may add. And they made good on that. Fortunately, it wasn't a major catastrophe. But I feel we need people in Brigantine who know Brigantine. I don't need somebody living, I don't know how many miles away, to tell us what is good in Brigantine. I think that's the original concept we had. That is where we should still have it. I know when I used to walk into commissioner meetings, I will never forget, there was a man, elderly gentleman, Jim Rossini, lived down along Lagoon somewhere. And I walk in, and the man would shudder, and he would say, "Here comes trouble." I've mellowed over the past years. I feel enough of the backstabbing and everything. We've got to get to the point of what is good in Brigantine. When we call somebody out, they know what they're talking about. And I hope that's the way it'll continue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Favor. Augie.
My name is Augie Peltonen, 203 11th Street North. Gee, I came here in the late 60s. I started a teaching career. When I first started teaching, they told us, "You're not going to make a whole lot of money, but you're going to have benefits. And you're going to have good benefits and a retirement package." And that gave me incentive to keep going with my profession. They said maybe after 5 or 7 years, you'll have these different steps, and eventually, you'll be doing okay, all right? That's why I was a school teacher. I didn't go in there with somebody telling me, "Oh, you're going to be a part-time teacher, you're never going to have any benefits," nothing like that, no pension, okay? That stinks, all right? That's why I don't think we need anybody part-time. Now, if you've ever watched Chicago Fire, which I watched last night, those guys have their back. That chief is right there with them. I don't know if you've ever seen Chicago Fire, have you? That's a great show. If that chief is right there, he knows what's going on, and his men respect him, and those guys are in a brotherhood. And they know when they go into a dangerous situation, somebody's going to be watching their back. So we need to keep that the way it is. We need our chiefs back, and we need a brotherhood of firefighters to stick together on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Augie. Okay, any other public comment on agenda items? Anything else on, Joe?
Good evening. Joseph McGuire, 606 Lafayette Boulevard, Brigantine. I just want to address in the salary ordinance part-time firefighters and make sure it's crystal clear to you members of council as you vote tonight what you are about to do, okay? First of all, we work as a unit in the fire service, and you can go anywhere in the country and they work as a unit. Okay, when you look at Brigantine's department, state law, you can't mandate that a firefighter or a police officer lives in the municipality where they are employed. But over 80% of the fire department lives on the island, chooses to be a part of this community, chooses to raise their family here, all right, and chooses to do things other than their careers in the department, such as coaching, volunteering time, things that we do constantly as a group for this city, okay? You start to bring part-time employees, no pension, no benefit, no security, no knowledge of the island, and they're going to work, what, once a month? How are these people going to be trained to the standards to respond as a group? And the answer is they're not. They're never going to be able to put enough time in. And the scary thing is that nobody's mentioned is not only are you putting the public's lives in jeopardy with part-time employees, you're putting your employees' lives in jeopardy. We work with a 6-man minimum. That number didn't come out of the air. That's to meet the 2 in, 2 out standard. A guy that runs the pump to make sure that the guys that go in the house get the water, and an incident commander that runs the scene. And now, bringing part-time guys in, one of those intricate pieces is going to be someone that's not familiar with the crew he's working with. He's not familiar with the island. He's not familiar with how we operate. And if you sit there with all the reassurance of a used car salesman and tell the camera that I assure the citizens of Brigantine they're going to be safe, well, I'll tell you, that's being disingenuous, plain and simple. And at the end of the day, you must realize, all right, that if you tell people that part-time workers aren't going to make them unsafe, part-time firefighters, I'll tell you what, you can say it, but someone gets hurt, or God forbid someone gets killed, the liability issues on your hands are huge, huge. And everyone should know that going into this, okay? Because we're trying to play pretend, and we're talking about bringing a civilian in to run a department on top of the civilian public safety director, okay? And everything that was accused of the Republican Party for the last 20 years is exactly what you're doing. You don't want a qualified member of the department to run that department. You want to bring somebody in that you can control. Plain and simple. Plain, let's tell it like it is. Really. You don't want 100 years of experience sitting in that department to pick a chief from, like 500 and other some municipalities in the state of New Jersey, like every other department in the country that's run by a chief. You want to create some position from someone that's not familiar with this town, and someone that's not familiar with how we operate, and is a civilian, so you can tell them what to do, plain and simple. Not follow the law, which certainly we seem to have been having problems with lately in this municipality, okay? Not following standards that are safe and meeting compliances. And again, you guys sit up there and you smirk and you think this is funny. And I'll tell you this, I just want to thank Dr. Kern for stating publicly at the last council meeting that what's going on here is personal and political, because my lawyer had a field day with that. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Williams.
Okay. Hi, everybody. All right, my name is Kitty Williams. I owned a home at 419 West Shore Drive for 45 years, but I no longer own it. It's going to be demolished because of Sandy. I now live at 107 Quay Boulevard. And I have to tell you that I came from Ireland 49 years ago tomorrow. I lived in Atlantic City for a year and a half, and I moved to Brigantine. When I moved to Brigantine, I knew that I was never going to leave this island. Never. I've told you, Mayor Gunther, on the beach in Brigantine, this is the nicest, cleanest place anywhere. I have company that comes from Ireland. I have company that comes from all over the country. Irish girls that married Americans, just like I did, and they all say the same thing. The beaches are immaculate, The place is immaculate, and it was immaculate before you were, whatever you people here, you over here, before you were ever elected. It was immaculate back then, and it's immaculate now. And I don't know what you people intend to do to improve on perfection, because this island was perfect when I first came to it, and it's perfect today. What do you intend to do to improve on perfection? Thank you, Mayor Gunther. Thank you, because you were the people that started it, and you were the people that kept it nice. It was nice then, and you're keeping it nice. And that's, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Any other comment on the agenda? I have to remind you that I was against 2 public portions. Just throwing that out there. With that said, we're going to move on with the agenda. Okay. We have a representative, George from Vital. He's going to give us a quick update on the reeval. George, if you would.
Yeah, basically we've been conducting our informal meetings with property owners over the last 2 weeks. We're continuing to do so. Our last day is going to be this Saturday. We have included, I believe, 14 days total, couple evenings, 3 different Saturdays for the convenience of property owners to be able to come in. Some just want to, and the response has been relatively moderate. Most of the people who've come in have been very polite and courteous, and we've tried to be the same. Some people just want to check the information, and they're not disagreeing that the value, they think the value is reasonable. Most of the people coming in think the value should be reduced, which is not shocking. But we are taking a look at all those and trying to review them. There's been a couple rare instances where people wanted their assessments to go up, but we don't generally do that. At any rate, the response has probably been about 6% of the total taxable properties. So it's been on the moderate side. We do have some extra personnel generally available if there's any questions. People need information verified, we can send somebody back to the house with them to do an inspection. So basically, it's been going real well.
George, what dates are left for people to come in?
The dates that are left for people to come in are really, today's Wednesday, it'd be tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. So anyone interested should obviously give us a call in the morning.
Okay. I think that's important information because some people I know have said, you know, I'd like to go in and talk to Vital about my assessment. You're running out of time for this informal process. So you have about 3 days?
Yeah, 3 more days.
3 more days here. So if you need to do that, please. And the number again, George?
Yeah, it's better to call us at, well, there's 2 numbers, 266-6690 or 272-6690. And yeah, I mean, we did allow, you know, ask people to call us within 7 days, but sometimes it gets by people and they put it off, so. But they should call us as soon as possible if they have any concerns. Sometimes we can just answer some minor questions over the phone if they have concerns about some specific things.
George, I just want to say that I came in and it wasn't too busy, and some other people came in from the island and they couldn't get through, and your guys took care of them right away. So I applaud you on that.
Oh, thank you.
Your help was very helpful and professional.
Yeah, we try to help out as best we can.
It was great.
It's a difficult process for people to understand.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything else you want to add, George?
No, I think that's all, unless anybody's got, the council or public's got any
Any other
questions.
council questions for George? Okay. Thank you, and sorry you had to keep you.
That's interesting and informative.
Yes.
Watch your back going out.
It's probably good that I'm brief.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we move to Resolution 2014-2 is award of the professional service contract for municipal attorney. Do we have a nomination?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Fred Cerny of Parker McKay as our municipal attorney for the 2014 calendar year.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Simpson,
Oh, my God. Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes?
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next, we have a resolution, which would be, I guess, 9A, item 9A, resolution, how are you going to number this one, Liz? You're going to be 2A?
No, that,
That's 14. No,
Three-
14
three's
dash
okay.
after number 10.
Number 16.
I thought you wanted to go to the risk management
Number
consultant.
16
that
is the
wasn't
change.
until, I think, number 6.
Oh, you're going to move it to the end, okay. All right, resolution 2014-3 to award a professional service contract for Labor Council. Do we have a nomination, please?
I'd like to nominate Eric Bernstein for Labor Council.
Second?
Okay, had a motion and a second. Could we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
No.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
No.
Motion carried.
Next, need a resolution 2014-4, award of professional service contract for municipal engineer. Have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second?
Actually, we need a nomination, I'm sorry.
Yeah, nomination. You gonna do the
Hang
whole
on one
list?
second.
I can read them all fast.
You
All right.
do the whole list.
If we could amend this motion to follow the system that we've first introduced last year, to create a pool of eligible engineers who will be asked to give bids on an individual job basis through the year.
Or hers.
Okay, who moved?
That was moved by,
Yep.
I don't know.
Okay. It would be Endicott Engineering, Roberts Engineering, Remington and Vernick, PS&S, Hatch, Mott and McDonald, and Mazer, and CME.
Okay, had a motion and a second?
Second?
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
Picardi,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, resolution 2014-5 is award of professional service contract for bond counsel. Do we have a nomination, please?
I'd make a motion that we appoint Joel Fleischman of Fleischman Daniels.
I second that.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay.
Yes.
Picardi.
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, resolution 2014-6, award of professional service contract for municipal auditor. Can I have a nomination, please?
I'd like to nominate Bowman and Company as the municipal auditor.
And I'll second that.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay.
Yes.
Picardi,
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, resolution 2014-7, award of professional service contract for the prosecutor. Have a motion and second, please?
I'd like to move that we appoint William Wheels Reynolds as the prosecutor,
AKA?
AKA.
I second that.
Could we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
Picardi,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next we need a resolution 2014-8, award of professional service contract for the conflict prosecutor. We have a nomination, please?
I'll make that nomination. I'd like to nominate Jim Schroeder of the Schroeder Law Firm.
Second?
Could we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
Picardi,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Resolution 2014-9, award professional service contract for the public defender. We have a nomination, please?
I'll make that nomination, Mayor. I'd like to nominate Jerry Steiner of the Steiner Law Office.
I'll second that.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Frank.
Jerry. Jerry
Jerry
Steiner.
Stein.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Pallola?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay,
Now we have,
Now the extra one.
okay.
now we have risk management.
Now we need resolution to appoint a risk management consultant. Can we have a motion and second, please?
So moved.
Need a nomination, rather?
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
I'll nominate Syracuse.
I second that.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Pallola?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Move to ordinance number 1 of 2014 is an introduction of the fee ordinance. We have a motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I still think a lot of fees should remain the same, especially with the year we just had going through Sandy. We're also holding fast on our building permits. We're not charging people for that, so I don't think we should be raising fees at this particular time.
Andy, I'm philosophically with you, but as I look at this, not so many fees are being raised, and they appear to be pretty nominal, minimal increases.
They are, but a lot of people, nominal is a lot for them. So if we can hold it for one more year, I'd like to see that. Because it's not gonna impact our budget greatly.
Andy, is it certain fees or all of them?
Well, four-wheel drive fees were, they were big. But I just think as a fee in whole right now, we should just hold for one more year. Give people another break, because, we just got a letter, I think it was from Jennifer, her email stating that she doesn't want to charge anybody for building permits at this point.
Right, to extend
They extended.
the waiver that council did
Yes,
earlier.
yeah, and we're gonna do that, why can't we just do the fees, because the fees are $5 and this and that.
Well, the fees that we're holding are related to Sandy.
The majority of them are the mercantile licenses, the beach
I mean-
permit fees,
No,
things
I'm
like
talking
that.
about the building fees that
building.
we're not charging for are not all building fees on the island. They're building fees that are associated with remediation for Sandy.
And some are new construction fees too, yeah.
And, they could be $5,000 and $10,000 a permit.
Right.
Well, Andy, one area of this ordinance that, I don't know if it falls into that same category as you were thinking, with respect to raising like the mercantile fees, is in section 12. Sorry, I think it's section 12. It's on page 20 of the copy we have. We have some new provisions dealing with compensation for police, detail, fire, and beach patrol when their service is required, because, as we know, they're not, by law, allowed to donate their services. So when they're needed for various special events around town, they're entitled to be compensated, and the money's got to come from somewhere. So I think we have maybe a bigger question.
Yeah, but we were talking about that last time with the polar bear plunge. We were gonna talk about who we were not gonna charge and who, for nonprofits.
Well, I'm saying that's, right now, there's language in here, though,
Right.
which sets a kind of a uniform policy that if you need their services, you're going to pay whatever amount of money.
Okay.
So if...
But should it be delineated in here whether it's a nonprofit, island-based charity type of?
Well, the problem you run into, Phil, though, is that once again, the law kind of gets in our way, that we can't differentiate between, much as we may want to, between one recognized 501c3 or another, and not that they'll have to be 501c3s, but that's typically what you have. You know, a recognized registered not-for-profit or charitable organization, we can't differentiate between them and say, this one, because of some particular characteristics, we're going to provide reduced price or free services, and another one we're not going to. Now, is there some way to work around the fringes on that? There might be, but I think that's a discussion we'd have to engage Fred in, and I know he's not at the moment ready to engage in that discussion.
Well, Fred, I think the issues we have, you know, is you have groups that run large events here on the island that raise a significant amount of money that goes back to the island, the Elks being one of them with their events. But also, it's a tourism issue, you know, for the community as well. You know, where you're bringing in a lot of people, you know, during Bayfest and during some of the other events that they have it's actually good for the whole community. So I think the question is, how do you differentiate? You know, if someone's doing construction on Brigantine Avenue and they need traffic detail, that's built in, you know, for that type of a purpose. It's, you know, their costs are known.
Jennifer, are these time
What do you do with the
sensitive?
nonprofits?
Are the fees time sensitive? Sensitive?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are the fees time sensitive?
No, we can,
Could we table this and maybe discuss this before, or
yeah, whatever council would like. I mean, this is nothing that we mandatorily have to do. It's just we try to update it, you know, annually or
Right.
something near about, so we stay consistent with surrounding communities and what we need to cover our expenses. But it's nothing we would have to do
We
tonight.
had a little discussion last time when the polar bear plunge was gonna get charged, and then
Right.
the firefighters and the police department.
Right now, what we're doing with that
came
is
up with the money,
combining.
So I think we should decide what charities, you know, are we gonna charge and we're not gonna charge.
Mhm.
Or if we're gonna charge all charities, like Rick says, if it's the law.
Well, I'm okay with tabling it myself, but coupled with asking Mr. Cerny to look into and come back to us at the next meeting if possible,
Yeah.
with some sense of what the legal constraints really are. You know, what are we obliged to provide to whom and on what terms?
You know, from my perspective, we can do that. I mean, I understood that this particular issue arose because the fee that was in the fee ordinance previously was not sufficient to cover the cost that the municipality incurs when these officers have to go out and pull this special duty, and they're being paid. So that's why the language that Councilman DeLuca referred to earlier was recommended, and that's why it went in. As to the second issue that the mayor is raising, I think there may be a way that if you were having an event that effectively is a public event, it may be sponsored by a nonprofit, but it has serious public implications for the community. There may be a way that council, on a case-by-case basis, could go ahead and waive the fees because of the public impact of the event. I'll be glad to take a look at that, and we can talk a little more next meeting, but that would be the direction that I would be looking to go in. A serious public overtone, benefit to the community, we can probably find a way to get there.
Thank you, Fred. I think that would be important to.
Fred, could you check and see what other municipalities do in this regard as well?
Sure, we can do that.
I did reach out to a number of municipalities after the last meeting, and I got, you know, less than a handful of responses, but the ones that did respond said they do charge for the civic organizations and the nonprofits as well as the profit organizations. But I think the mayor made a good point, and Councilman Puella at the last meeting too, that these are, like the Polar Bear Plunge specifically, does bring in a lot of tourism that helps our local businesses. After the plunge, they're at Laguna, they're at Andres, they're at the pub, and, you know, they are bringing in some.
Especially that time of year, too.
Yes.
That's a nice shot in arm.
I just want to add that there was another polar bear plunge that was asked about having emergency services stand by in February. It was another nonprofit. That question, I'm not sure what those folks decided to do, but that question came up again right after the last polar bear plunge. So it seems to keep coming up, unfortunately. And they're also giving to the Fisher House, again, a very worthwhile charity, but they made sure to put that in their email and their request. that they're giving, their donations are going to Fisher House. So it starts to become murky at best.
Yes.
Put
And,
put
I
a pair
only
of shorts
one
on out
once a
there
year.
and be the lifeguard.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna table?
All right, we need a
I'll make a
motion.
motion to table it. Make a motion to table.
We have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, next we move to Resolution 2014-10, which is the temporary budget. Whereas New Jersey statutes provides where any contract, commitment, or payments are to be made prior to the final adoption of the 2014 budget, a temporary appropriations should be made for the purposes and the amounts required in the manner and time therein provided. Whereas the date of this resolution is within the first 30 days of 2014, and whereas 26.25% of the total appropriations 2013 budget of any appropriations made for interest and debt redemption charges, capital improvements, and public assistance is $6,722,850.50. Therefore, be resolved, this is the temporary budget. Do you have a motion second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
LeClay?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next we have the resolution 2014-11, which is the 2014 council meeting dates. We have a motion and second, please?
So moved. I should like to say that there are 2 Saturday meetings on the proposal.
Okay.
Hey, Frank, wait a
We
minute.
just need a quick second.
I'll second Frank's.
Okay.
There are 2 Saturday meetings scheduled, one in May and one in August, for those people in the community who cannot make it on a Wednesday night meeting.
Excuse me, Frank, which version are you looking at right now, could I ask? The one I have shows that we're calling for Saturday
I'm sorry,
meetings
May
in
and
May
June. I'm sorry, May
and
and-
June.
Yeah, you got that.
Okay.
May and June.
Yes, sorry.
And let's change the PM to AM in May.
Okay.
Okay,
What's that, the 24th?
yeah.
We
Yeah.
always had that 3.5-hour limit. That's nothing new. It's always been on the bottom, and we just don't wait.
Can we put a time limit on them Saturdays? Because they can go to midnight.
I would like council to consider just removing the 3.5-hour limitation if, in practice, we can't, because I think when we've run over 3.5 hours, it's because we can't cut it off. It's because there's public input or just too many things on the agenda. And I would suggest maybe 1 or 2 additional Saturday meetings, possibly in April and September. Although I'm not committed to those months, I think if we could move 4 of our meetings total to Saturdays, and spread them out a bit through the year, that would be, optimal. And Mr. Sony's a big supporter of that.
And instead of grouping them, though, how about making them once a quarter?
Okay?
Well, does it make sense to have them in May and June?
That's what I'm saying, if we
I
spread
thought
it
that
across.
Originally, they were May and August.
Oh, okay.
Those were my recommendations. Right before the season began,
Right.
right before the Memorial Day weekend, and right before the season ended, late in August. So those were my original recommendations.
So we change the motion?
The,
Can we change,
The motion.
I'd like to change the motion that's been seconded, or amend the motion that's been seconded.
well, we're having discussion right now.
Okay.
We can change the whole thing at this point, right? Just. So the proposal is to have 4 Saturday meetings, 1 per quarter?
No.
Well, that's right. So
I think that's what Joe said.
But he's saying 4, but they're May, June, August, September.
No, I don't think that's what you.
No, that's, I was saying spread them out, instead of having them all grouped in May, June, August, and September, move them to one a quarter. That's my suggestion.
You know what, I'd like to make a recommendation. I think if we're going to add Saturday meetings, one should maybe be in April during our budget period to allow people to come in to discuss budget that can't get here on Wednesday nights.
So April actually would be second quarter, right? So you'd have one in January, one in April?
What about January?
If we have it in April, do you want to have it the first Saturday in April? The 5th? April 5th?
I think you know what, I think we might need to just agree to the first couple dates and then come back, because, you know, we're talking April. We don't know when, I don't know offhand when Easter is or Passover or anything else is at this point.
Okay.
I have a calendar.
So council is of a mind to do anywhere between 2 and 4 Saturday meetings. Can you make a decision as to which one you want?
My decision will be to follow the manager's recommendation and save about a half an hour of discussion by adopting what we have in front of us, minus the 3.5 hours, and revisiting, you know, as we move through the year to see when we could plug in 1 or 2 more if we still want to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Rick, and I agree with you on the 3.5 hour. In principle, we'd love to be able to do that, but we're violating our own ordinance. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, could we have roll call?
Simpson?
On what?
On, I think, exactly what's there, just changing the AM to PM.
And
And
losing the
PM to AM.
PM to AM, rather.
And
take
getting
out.
rid of the 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours.
Getting rid of the 3.5 hour.
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
Picardi?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Flilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next will be designating the official banks, Resolution 2014-12. And I have that one. Here we go. Okay, and this would allow the city manager to, City Council designates the New Jersey, State of New Jersey Cash Management Fund and the New Jersey Bank or Savings and Loan providing evidence participation under Government Unit Deposit Act. Do we have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
So, any discussion? So Jennifer, how do we get to the official bank?
It's a recommendation by the CFO. Typically, it doesn't change so much from year to year, so.
Is she ready to make that recommendation, or?
Yes, I think we're just moving ahead with the same
Okay.
ones we had this year.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
Picardi?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Flilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolution 2014-13 designating the official newspapers, the Beachcomber News, the Atlantic City Press, and the Philadelphia Inquirer. Have a motion second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
Picardi?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Flilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next is designating the appointment of the JIF Fund, or excuse me, the JIF Safety Coordinator. And that would designate John Doring as the JIF Safety Coordinator. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is John willing to take on that awesome responsibility?
I'd like to say that John's been our safety coordinator, and he's done an excellent job.
I'm voting against him.
In fact, he's one of the reasons that our loss ratio is down at the city, and that affords us less expensive JIF insurance than some comparable towns.
Good work.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
Picardi?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And now we have Resolution 2014-15, appointment of the recycling coordinator, which is another hat for John Doring. Have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would like to just say that our recycling rate has increased in Brigantine from 41% to 52%. Thank you, John. Good job in the Public Works.
Simpson,
Yes.
McLeay,
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next, we have the appointment of the stormwater coordinator, and that would be George Moore. We have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Simpson,
Yes.
McLeay,
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next would be the appointment, Resolution 2014-17, the appointment of the JIF Fund Commissioner and Claims Coordinator, and this would be Karen Thomas. A motion and second, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Simpson,
Yes.
McLeay,
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next is Resolution 2014-18, which is the work change order for the final concrete repair at various locations. And this is amending the contract with El Ferriazzi Concrete Company from $24,225 to $26,240, a net increase of $2,115, or excuse me, $2,015. We have a motion second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about the quantity changes?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a contract that was awarded to replace damaged concrete curb and sidewalk at several places throughout the island that were identified after the cleanup of Sandy. During the construction, there was additional curb replaced at Ocean Drive and also on 7th Street North. That was determined in the field as we were removing the damage that was identified. I was out there and observed additional concrete curb that needed to be replaced. Likewise, the sidewalk, additional sidewalk had to come out on 7th Street North. That was a result of actually the way the existing sidewalk had been poured. So when we started to take it out, because it was, the curbing was oversized, monolithic poured, it damaged additional sidewalk. So that's the the change is an increase of $2,015.
Thank you, Ed. Any additional questions from council? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McLeay,
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next we move to Resolution 2014-19, the acceptance of the shoreline monitoring proposal from the Richard Stockton College of New Jersey. Go motion second, please.
Excuse me, Mayor. If I could, there's two proposals from Stockton. They're both attached behind the resolution. But I spoke with Jennifer and Fred, and if we could add to the resolution, in addition to accepting the proposal for the continued monitoring of the municipal shoreline, but also to prepare the grant application for the Department of Interior Hurricane Sandy Coastal Resiliency Grant. So this is an application, it's a nationwide grant. We are applying for, with Stockton as our sub-consultant and the DEP as our partner, to a federal department for a grant to approve a passing project along our ocean front where we would take sand from the south end and move it to the north end and be able to demonstrate through monitoring the effectiveness of that process.
Great. Okay. Can we have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McLeay.
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palilla. Palillo,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carried.
Mayor, if I may ask, before we get to the next item, our council and manager discussion, could we do a voice resolution for the planning board appointments?
Yes.
And I'll make that if that's all right.
Okay, we have a nomination for appointments to the planning board.
Appointments to the planning board for the year 2014 as the Class 1 member of the board, which is the mayor of the municipality. I would nominate the mayor, Phil Gunther. For the Class 2 appointee, an employee of the community, I would nominate Tim Daly. Class 3, member of council, Councilman Tony Palella. Class 4, 2 appointments for the 2 expired terms on the board, and I would nominate 2 of last year's alternates, Mike Brindisi and Roberta Fusco, to assume those Class 4 positions. And recognizing but not having to vote on in this motion that there are 2 continuing Class 4 appointees who were initially appointed last year, Dory Herndon and Conrad Weiler, and 2 other, the 2 final Class 4, we have to evaluate further what their status is to determine when their terms expire. So for purposes of the motion, it's the Classes 1, 2, and 3, and 2 persons, Mike Brindisi and Roberta Fusco, as Class 4.
Okay, do we have a second?
So move. Or second.
Okay, could we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palillo,
Yes, with,
Kern,
Yes.
Low, right?
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. Next, we move to, there is I guess, an analysis of the part-time firefighters that you'd like to discuss before we discuss the salary ordinance?
Sure. Can I just go over the other 2 items, because they'll be very quick, I believe. One is to continue the waiver for the construction permits until, I believe, June 30th would be adequate. Right now, we have people that are just demolishing and building because they're just now receiving some funding, including insurance money. So these waivers would be what we did before, just be continuation of the waiver to allow people that are rebuilding from Sandy not to pay the fees. They'd still have to come in and get the permit, but the fee would be waived.
Okay,
Is a council?
absolutely.
Okay.
Need a motion to continue waiving the fees for Sandy-impacted properties?
So moved.
Second.
And that will be until June 30th.
Until June 30th?
Yes, is that okay?
Yes.
That's an interim item.
Okay, 6:30.
Okay, we've had a motion and second. Can we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palillo,
yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, and next we have the external color of taxi cabs.
We did, we did a moratorium on the code that wouldn't allow us to have more than one color for the taxi cabs, as a request by the taxi cab companies last year. We first had it, I think, to earlier in the year, extended it until this fall, and I'm asking, since we haven't had any problems, to continue to extend it until August 31st.
Okay. Need a motion and a second to extend the allowance for multicolored taxi cabs.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And during that time, we may want to consider changing the ordinance so we don't have to do this
Every year.
every
Yes.
6 months.
No, I agree. The reason that I'm not suggesting it right now, because originally this came up because the taxi cabs were looking at, and I don't know what it's technically called, but that wrapping that they've been doing in Atlantic City on some of the
Vehicle wrap.
jitneys and buses. None of them have done that at this point, so we don't know if it's going to be an issue moving forward, but I want to leave an opportunity for them to.
Very good. Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
Yes to the wrapping.
McClay,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palillo,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay. I know everyone probably received an analysis late this afternoon concerning the, what's in the salary ordinance with part-time firefighters. So the city manager has sent out her analysis of what the potential savings could be. And at this point, we can begin that discussion.
Bill, are you talking about the analysis in here?
No, there was an email that went out late this afternoon about,
You would have received a hard copy too from Lynn.
here,
Thank you. Is this mine? Or pass it down?
Jennifer, if you want to go over your analysis,
Sure. I wanted to bring up a discussion of the part-time firefighters because some of the questions that come up in prior council meetings, I realized, there may be not some clarity amongst us all about what this really meant on a management staff level. And these are things I spoke to with both Chief Hall and Director Howard about implementing as a possibility of moving forward. This came about as an option after last year when Mayor and Council said, on the advice of the auditor, that we really need to look at cutting salary and wages, and I believe all of Mayor and all of Council did not want to have any type of layoffs, so we thought attrition would be the best way. Moving forward, talking to Chief Hall, talking to Director Howard, and even talking to some of the captains of the fire department, their concerns with staffing. They didn't really feel that reducing the platoons any further down than they've already been reduced was really a viable option. So looking at ways to continue staffing, maintain staffing at the levels that we're already staffed at, while doing it at a less cost to the taxpayer, we came up with the idea of possibly having part-time firefighters, a way to do this. So I did an analysis to show some additional costs that we would have having the part-time firefighters, but also where the savings would lie. And if we continue staffing at the same levels, and that's by having the same amount of hours covered by part-time instead of full-time employees, the greatest savings really comes from the health benefits, and then next in line would be the pension costs, and also the reduction in salary costs. And that's seen more over time because the part-time figures in the salary ordinance go from $15 an hour to $20 an hour, whereas currently, if you look at the hours for our newly hired firefighters, it's 19. But the steps move up rapidly as they go through the steps and the yearly increases, which can be around 14 to 16% per year, which you wouldn't see with the part-time. And I have some figures in there. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at it, but basically in the first years where we'd have the largest savings of approximately $420,000, each subsequent year after that will be about $335,000 a year, mostly because of the health benefits, the pension expense, and some of the salary as well.
and what other options did you explore besides the part-time firefighters?
Well, this is all in comparison to rehiring the 7 firefighters again.
Right, but I mean, within that context of having the retirements, were there any other options that were explored?
Not that would yield this type of savings. Right now, though, which should be noted, we started our negotiations with the fire unions, and from talking to Director Howard through his conversations with some of the union representatives, he's in belief, or at least told me, that they are planning to come to the table with, some ideas that might address some of these issues.
Well, if in fact that's the case, then wouldn't this be premature to implement, not knowing what the potential savings could be with the negotiations that are underway?
No, because it has to start somewhere, and one of the items that the union representative wanted was information from us. They'd want to see what these numbers look like, and of course they'd be getting copies of this, after this council meeting. What the salary ordinance allows us to do is to move in that direction. This is a process, It's going to take us time. We have the first reading of the salary ordinance, the second, then there's 20 days after that. We posted the ads, but still getting in the ads, getting in the resumes from those ads, then leads to us having the interview process, which takes some time. By, I believe, mid or the end of February, we're going to be down 7 firefighters. So yes, we are going to have to set up things where we can move and fill these positions. And I would like to continue to have the option having a part-time as one of those options. Not saying that we're doing that at this point, but we're going to have to make decisions rather quickly.
I understand the analysis, and but I don't think that we have looked at all of the options that are possible. And my concern about putting this in the salary ordinance is this is how we arrived at having a public safety director. I was told that we were putting our toe in the water, we're going to see what's out there, and the next thing you know, no offense, Mr. Howard, Mr. Howard is here.
Well, actually, the director of public safety had been in the salary ordinance for many years.
And I understand that,
Yeah.
but we also had chiefs. But it had not been filled in several years either. But I have serious concerns about making a decision tonight about adding something that is fundamentally going to change the way that public safety is delivered in Brigantine. I have a real problem with doing that, you know, on a analysis that we just received, but also that once it's there, I have to believe that it's going to be utilized. And, you know, once it's utilized, we won't know we have a problem until we have a problem. And that concerns me greatly. I think there are a lot of other options that could be looked at. And I think what we need to do is pretty simple. I think we really need to take some time and you know, work with the fire department, work with the police department, work with the beach patrol to see if there are cost savings, if there are efficiencies. And you know, I think that's a process that we should do together as a council.
I disagree.
Well, of course.
Well, let me ask you this, Frank.
Well,
if we were to...
What you're saying is, we won't know that we have a problem until we have a problem. Well, we have a problem. It's called taxes. And I'll go into what Mr. Weiner said that I said, but I'll repeat it. I'll repeat what I said. What I said was that the very fact that we have not appointed a permanent public safety director should be an indication that many of us up here would like to see chiefs back. On the other hand, I said we wanted to have a partner. We wanted to have a partner that understood that what the majority of council and the city manager need to do to establish tax stability and fiscal stability in this town, he has to understand that, he or she has to understand that, and be able to implement it and work smoothly with the city manager to get it accomplished. No one that I know of in those departments has come forward. What I said was no one in those departments has come forward and shown me that he understood that that was the managerial abilities that were required. No one showed me those that he could work to implement the requirements that are necessary to establish fiscal responsibility. So we have a problem there. It's called taxes. Now, in the audience, just for the people at home, in the audience we have about 100 people. I would dare to say that at least 80 of them are municipal employees, either here or somewhere else, or relatives of municipal employees here or somewhere else. So I speak for not just the municipal employees, who I think do an outstanding job, but I also speak for the taxpayers. And so we do have a problem, and it's called fiscal responsibility and spending taxpayer dollars and how to save on those dollars. The new chiefs have to understand that that's what's required of the job and that things have to change. The people want them to change. They insist that they change. If the fire department and the police department are meeting with the city manager and have other ideas to save these kinds of monies, then that's great, I'm all for it. But we need to have the option, the city manager needs to have the option of having part-time employees, firefighters, EMTs, so that she can, if need be, fill those positions, if need be.
Mayor,
Frank,
can I
with-
make a
Go
comment
ahead,
on
But I
the,
just want to mention to Frank, with all due respect, I think that's a little different than what you said before.
Well, I think
And
that
I
you,
think the other part of this too is with this form of government, the city manager is supposed to run the day-to-day operations. City manager is supposed to make a recommendation based on the resources that are provided by city government. And I've heard the manager say many times that she's in favor of chiefs. I've heard that. But at the same time, we don't have a mechanism as a policy-setting body. We really don't have a mechanism to meet with the fire department leadership or the police department leadership on our own. We would have to do that as a body. And
Executive session.
and if in fact that's the case, you know, maybe that's something we ought to do. Maybe we ought to bring in the leadership of the fire department as a body, so we all hear the same thing. And we should hear their recommendations and what cost-saving ideas they have. Maybe it deals with staffing, maybe it deals with other issues. And when you look at these numbers, just to put it in perspective, we're talking about the potential savings, and with the new ratables, would be somewhere around, the first year would be a little over a penny. I would think with the new ratables would be right around a penny in subsequent years at $335,000. Last year you had an opportunity to lower taxes by that amount, and there was an attitude that we didn't need to do that. But now we're going to gut public safety to save a penny prospectively that we don't even know that is what it's going to do. And there's a lot that's not in this calculation. But I think we need to, I challenge the rest of council. Do you want to sit with the police department, the fire department leadership, the beach patrol leadership, and find out what exactly are they proposing, what can be done?
I don't think any of us have a problem. Personally, I don't, sitting down with people together so that we all hear the same thing at the same time. But I think that if we don't move on this, then these figures just remain theoretical and a proposal. And the unions don't have anything solid to come up against and argue against and propose. It all just turns theoretical. If we act on this, then there's something concrete that they have to work against and to give out their ideas. Otherwise, nobody can be on solid ground.
Well, Joe, we have a responsibility to negotiate in good faith. And, you know, I think the law is very clear on that. We need to find out exactly, do you know what's been proposed by the police department?
No, I haven't heard.
Right.
No one's come
So,
to me.
We don't know. Do we know what the
can't
fire
come-
department is
but if-
proposing?
but if
That's not
we-
true. Earlier
but this
in the,
lets us- gives
earlier
it-
in the year, I did present to mayor and council the status of negotiations. Not much has changed. Now, recently, they submitted a very good proposal to us about a month ago, I believe. Just a day or two ago, they received our counter proposal on that. So I believe after we meet next, which is with the, I believe it's the 23rd or the 24th that I meet with the PBA. After that point, I'll have an update
Well, I
for
would rather
council.
sit face to face. If we're going to take on that responsibility
Right.
of judging whether someone has managerial skills, judging whether they have the ability to run a department, I'd like to sit there with them face to face, because right now you're making those decisions.
No, no.
No, we're not.
Stop.
You are.
No, hold on.
Absolutely not.
Hold on. You are going way afield, Phil. Number one, We, as a body, cannot and do not negotiate contracts. That's the manager's job. She's been doing it. And as everybody up here knows, the manager has kept us fully advised of how those contract negotiations
Rick,
are going.
I don't know whether I was in the same meetings you were, but I don't feel that I'm
Phil,
fully advised.
when I hear you, I wonder what meetings you've been in. I'll tell you. Let me take it back a little bit. 2012, in the budget, I said then, repeatedly, and I said it throughout 2012, we have budgetary problems. Please, city employees, and I said specifically, and the council in 2012 and again in 2013, made it their top priority not to have layoffs, not to affect anybody's position. Despite all the rhetoric and the anonymous postings and the other things that we can read on various places in the internet, posted by I'm not sure whom, but sometimes attributable to the departments, the reality is we did that. Nobody's terms of employment have been changed. Nobody's getting paid less. Their contracts were up, and there's negotiations for the first time ever, legitimate and maybe a little hard-edged negotiations. That's normal in the entire world where management deals with organized labor. Organized labor should understand that, and management should understand that. That's going to result in some structure of payment for the unions going forward. Now, what I said in 2012 is we have financial issues. Now, we're 2 years later, and I have gotten nothing from anyone with ideas on how to do that. So,
Rick,
Phil,
they don't
you
come
can't
through
come
you,
up in
Rick.
20...
They come through the city
They
manager.
would, and the city manager hasn't gotten it. So
Well,
you
I
can't
would
sit here in
rather hear- I would rather
2014...
hear directly from them, Rick.
I'm sure you would, Phil, but we have a council manager form of government. The manager has been negotiating, the manager has been dealing day to day, week to week with all of the city's employees. I have asked, as a policymaker and not as a negotiator in any other role, if people have ideas on how to save money, we need to hear them. If there are efficiencies, and the answer was no answer. Now, I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to speculate why that is, but the reality didn't change. It didn't get better. We had a tough financial situation in 2012. It worsened in 2013. 2014, the reality is, and I don't know, and I'm not going to characterize how the unions are approaching negotiations. If I was representing the union, I'd say, ask for more. That's normal. That's perfectly fine. And where you end up, I don't know. But it's certainly not going to be dramatically less than where we were before. We can look at the numbers. We've audited the budgets, 2012, 2013, and we're going to have 2014. It costs a certain amount of money to run the departments. Now, let me address one other thing. Value is not subjective. Occasionally people come up and say, whatever it takes to compensate the police and fire, I'm in favor of it. And you know what? Subjectively, I am too, because I've used the fire department services. They've come to my house when we had a problem. I needed the EMT service one time personally. Tremendous service. When have you ever, the answer is never, heard me or other Democratic members of council say that the members of the police and fire and the beach patrol were anything other than top quality professionals? Haven't said it, and I'm not going to say it because I don't believe it. Now, with that said, we got to pay you. How do we do that? One answer would be staff the departments at whatever level the departments say they should be staffed, and pay them in accordance with the contract. Staff them with full-time people and pay them. Well, we can all do the math, and I know internally the unions have done the math. You know what that would cost. We don't have that. We don't have it for a lot of reasons, and the departments don't operate in a vacuum financially. It's not as if, we could take care of one department and, pretend that the money is going to come from somewhere magically, even when we have big holes elsewhere. It's one pile or pot of money, and there's a lot of demands on it. And some of the demands that are new since 2012 are, and Phil doesn't like this one, but it's a reality. We are paying now because past administrations didn't put away a single cent to pay the retirement benefits that are due to retired members of the department. That's a $400,000 or $500,000 item. Now, it's spread out over a couple of years because we're able to bond it. It doesn't change the fact that is money that should have been gathered in past years through taxation or other means and should have been available to pay the people so that we're not looking in one given year, 2014, at a situation where we have a huge payment like that. We have tax appeals, which maybe they're done and maybe they're not with the revow. We don't know, we hope. But tax appeals absolutely blew huge holes in at least our last two budgets. In the years since the revow, the first revow in 2006, did those administrations put away anything against the possibility that we might have these reductions? No, they didn't. Taxes went up in most of those years, went somewhere, it didn't go there. We have obligations now. We have long-term obligations for capital expenditures. These are all real. Saying that doesn't mean that there's the slightest bit of hostility to the departments, but I'm not going to look at the numbers and say, I can make these work when I can't. The mayor says, I think we have options to explore. Well, you know, we're 2 years into it since I've been here saying the same things. I haven't heard option number one. Are there other options besides hiring full-time people and paying whatever it costs, or looking at some other alternative, whether it be some part-timers, whether it be a mix of part-timers plus some new people we're talking about the fire department with the case of part-timers, but the same thing would apply to the police department and with the Class 2s.
Well, Rick, fortunately, verbosity does not wear me down. What I think we have control over is the structure of those departments. We have control over how many people are in those departments. You have control over, through negotiations, what salaries are going forward.
Right.
These are the kind of things we ought to be looking at. You know, what we're doing, though, is you're going down a path that really is probably the easiest thing to do, but it could have the most negative impact on the operation of the departments. You know, the individuals who are making those comments are the ones who are in the job. You know, it's not like they're telling us everything's fine, we'll make it work. We have our contracts, we have our salaries. To be honest with you, I think the employees who come up here and speak are pretty gutsy about doing it. Because, you know, overall, they have a career to finish, but they're telling you the truth, what they think is the best for their department. Each and every one of them, they're not going anywhere, but they're worried about the department going forward. It's not about them, it's about the department.
Phil,
They're not
once
telling
again,
you want a
it's also about
4%
the
raise.
city.
They say, I don't want somebody behind me who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, hold on. Phil, once again, though, you're spinning it into an area which I didn't address and wasn't going to address because I don't feel that way, which is that the people who come up here from the departments and speak are in it for themselves. I said nothing of the kind. The reality is we have excellent departments. If we could staff them at whatever level people wanted and afford to do that, we wouldn't have any discussions.
You don't
that
know
would be
that,
done.
though, Rick. You don't
Phil,
know that.
I know what money we have and what money we don't have. I can do the math and see that this year, and again, I'm going to assume that when the contracts are finalized, there's not going to be any dramatic shift, because there never is. And it's not as if the amount of compensation that people are entitled to is going to drop dramatically. I can do that math. I can see where we are. I can see that if we hire X number of new hires, that within a certain period of time, through the step process and with the health benefits and the pension to which they're entitled, it is going to cost a certain amount of money. So this process that you love to characterize or mischaracterize as somehow being so mysterious or so conspiratorial has been nothing of the kind. I've been talking about it for 2 years. There's been no secret, because there have been discussions with the members of the department that one of the things that the manager has been looking at and considering is this possibility of part-timers. And for the last time, the salary ordinance doesn't commit to anything, and I'm not really worried that we'll come in someday and find out that on the slide when we weren't looking, Jennifer filled positions with part-timers, if council has not already authorized that as a policy decision that we want to follow.
It's
This
pretty
has come
clear
to
we're
us
going to
now
do
for-
it because we've already advertised for the positions, we're accepting applications, and we're going to interview.
Yeah,
I
how
mean,
could the manager report to us that it might be a viable option if she didn't know, A, are there even people out there who are potentially qualified to fill these positions? What kind of money would they require? And then input from the department, which has been invited and is still invited, begged for, tell us, and I heard some of the comments tonight, and, you know, I take them under consideration. Some of them were purely emotional. Some of them really don't impress me, I'll tell you. When you talk about some mystical factor of being from Brigantine, I think that's a slur on the professionalism of everybody who works in your professions. A person who is, in my view, a person who is a trained and certified firefighter or EMT is doing that because that is something they love and it's a profession that they want to give their best effort to. And unless I see differently in an individual, I'm not going to assume that because they happen to have a different zip code where they live, that somehow they wouldn't be as committed to their job and to protecting the safety of the people. So for me, that's not going to persuade me. Please take that off the table.
Mayor,
Well,
I do have a couple questions
You wanna
regarding
go,
the
Tony?
proposal.
Go
Not the proposal, but the analysis that was sent. I have a couple questions for Jennifer. And I want to try to clear up a misconception that I may have had or the public may have. in the analysis here, it refers to replacing 7 retired firefighters with 9 part-time firefighters. And it appears here that the part-time firefighters would work an average of 30 or under 30 hours per week.
Per week, yes.
Okay, so it's not as has been characterized that that individual would come and maybe work once a month. So we're talking about part-time firefighters that would have a schedule that would work less than a full-time position so that we would not have to pay benefits.
That's correct, and right now, our firefighters who are on the 24-hour shifts average about 7 days, 24-hour days per month, whereas the part-time, we'd be a little bit more flexible with the scheduling. They wouldn't have to necessarily be there 24 hours. We could work with different scheduling ideas, where they would actually be more available for the training and so forth, because they would be more there during the day.
Okay. Well, I wanted to
Than
make
our-
that distinction because I know we've had some fire officials come up stating that, you know, they would be difficult to work with. And of course, you know, I want to agree with Councilman DeLucre that a professional firefighter / EMT is just that. And the individuals that would be hired if we went with part-timers, as per the advertisement that I saw, would have a minimum of 3 years experience on the job.
Yes, and
Okay, so getting back to, now I'd like to make a couple comments, Mayor, about doing some due diligence, which I personally have done since the inception of looking into Public Safety Director. We went into that process because of a situation that occurred where 3 chiefs had retired. We stated back then that we were exploring that possibility. I want to tell you that many members of council did just that. They did their due diligence. I want to let you know that asking the permission of Jennifer Blumenthal, I met with former, now deceased Chief Hall on April the 9th of 13. And I had a discussion with Chief Hall because I truly believe that Chief Hall possessed the qualities that Councilman Kern referred to. He was a leader. He ran the department. But he understood that he held a position of management and needed to bring the department in a certain way. He was also told, based on what happened at council with tight budgets, that changes were going to be made, not through layoffs, but through attrition. When I met with Chief Hall, he indicated that he was already trying to come up with a new system with the amount of people that would be left once the retirees actually retire. And so he was being proactive. He was being a leader. He ran the department. I think everyone here and everyone in the audience and everyone, you know, appreciated and respected Jim Hall for what he was. So I think the comment that Frank made, I understand the comment he was making. And we all need the public to know that Jennifer Blumenthal said she wanted chiefs. There were circumstances that happened where Ms. Blumenthal appointed people to acting chiefs, and they quite frankly declined. It put the city in a predicament back in June. There were comments being made, posts being made that the island isn't safe. She opted at that point to hire a public safety director. Now, Phil, I see that you're smirking, but you know, this is in fact what happened.
This is theater.
Okay, so anyway, if I just could continue. You know, because I want the public to understand what the potential part-timers, you know, where they would be working, how much they would be working, because I read this, okay, and, you know, I was now understanding that it wasn't what had been purported to be, that, you know, these part-timers would work one day a month. So, and the reality is, as Councilman DeLucre stated, if you listen to Chris Christie the other day, it's all over his speech about what we have to do to reduce soaring costs. If you listened, I believe it was either yesterday or today on the Don Williams show, County Executive Denny Levinson stating that we need to consolidate, that we need to cut costs. What we are trying to do we're not the enemy, although that's the way we're perceived. We were elected to make efficiencies, cut costs. We've done it through attrition. We haven't laid anybody off, and this is what we're attempting to do. This is what we're trying to do. We would hope that the departments would buy in, okay? You know, have some serious dialogue, okay? And let's all move the city in the same direction. Let's not be pulling in opposite directions. And, you know, this is what I've been doing. And so I had this question that I wanted to ask regarding the part-time firefighters, because it's totally opposite and different of what was purported by, you know, members of the fire department. And that's my comment.
I'd like to make a couple comments. As everybody knows, or most of the people know, I run a couple businesses. I just got done my year-end on my liquor store, and I'm in control of the payroll of that store. Again, everybody wants to save money, you know. Me and my partner sat there and we talked about it, and what can we do? We have wine experts, we have beer experts, we have managers, we have this. But that's what makes us good. These professionals that I hire makes us what we are today. So when we're talking about putting a part-time firefighter, when I think right now you guys are possibly down 2 guys, if you move up a chief and have 7-man shifts, look at the problem coming through the door. Take care of instead of $45,000 when you get hired, make it $30,000. Negotiate this. Make it $30,000 and have these 16, 18, 22 steps. And you look at, and when somebody gets hired, they look at it and they say, in 7 years, I'll be making 50 grand. Well, if you don't want the job, don't take it. But you knew what you were getting into in the beginning. These guys over here, they're not going to lose their job. They're not going to lose their salary and stuff like that. But they're professionals. So you're beating on these people. We got to take care of the problem coming through the door, because these guys are going out the door. My solution would be is renegotiate, get down to $30,000 employees, hire 2 of those. There's a fire inspection in here for 80 grand. Eliminate that. And no offense, Dan, eliminate your position. There's $180,000 right there. So. Plus the 7 firefighters that we just retired, that's about $1 million in savings right there. So you got a lot of savings here. We're all doing our job. You know, we all want to save money, but not at the cost of somebody's life. So it has to have some kind of standards. If 7 is the minimum, we'll leave it at 7. Renegotiate from the person coming through the door tomorrow, not the guys leaving 2 weeks from now. Thank you.
Andy, is your suggestion that the manager in the next negotiating session with the firefighters should go in and say, we want to change the entire structure of the steps, and we want to have a starting salary significantly lower than it is now?
Yes.
All right. Have you talked to the union about that?
No, I'm not allowed to.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, they may have some say in that.
That's why I think me and the mayor are asking, have the union representatives come into executive meeting.
Don't need to. You have the manager. Andy, if, as a body,
As
if we want to do that,
$30,000,
we'll tell the
it
manager
could
to
be
do it.
$32,000, it could be $27,000. I'm just bringing
Agreed.
it
I'm not,
lower
I'm
and
holding you
up.
to a number, but
Yeah.
if you're saying that you would like council to consider directing as a matter of policy, that the manager, in whatever stage of the negotiations she is in with the fire department, suggest these changes
and
to
bring the
them,
steps out
then, you know, make that motion.
I just did.
Well, and I agree with Councilman Simpson's analysis. You know, he's obviously very good with the numbers, based on his business sense and how successful he's been. But I also believe that these are the kind of discussions that we could have together in executive session with the leadership of those departments sitting in front of us. And it's not just negotiating a contract, you're talking about restructuring. You know, the code, the city code says how many police officers, how many superior officers are in each department. We need to take a look at that. And that's the kind of analysis we need to do. This is, as far as I'm concerned, it's an option, but it's the easiest option. It's not the most thoughtful, and and we know it's operationally, it's not the best for the city of Brigantine.
It's a Band-Aid.
But if we don't act on it, it doesn't become an option.
But
It
Joe,
just sits there.
we sat there and negotiated with, talking about a public safety director, and then 3 hours before we have a meeting, we're gonna act on a motion to hire part-time help? This is just our analysis
No,
right here?
we're not saying we're gonna hire them. We're gonna say it's a possibility.
Well,
It's a
Dan,
real
Dan, how many-
possibility,
how-
and
how
unless
many
we
people
act on
did
it,
you
wait a
have-
minute. Unless we act on it, it doesn't become a real possibility. It's just something that's in the ether out there, and the union cannot come back to us with any concrete proposal because nothing is concrete if we don't act on it.
Dan, how many people have you, how many applications do you have for the part-time firefighter?
The advertisement out to League of Municipalities on January 7th. That's when it was posted, and I've had to date 10.
10.
So it's in the last week, give or take.
How many part-time firefighters are you proposing?
The original intention was between 10 and 15, a cadre of 10 and 15 to have a pool. So again, if you have a plan, gentleman knows he's going to be on vacation the second week of July, and you know that 2 months in hand, you can staff ahead of time. I know the number that the manager's putting out was 9, because that's what keeps it at the current levels. But the number that was originally proposed, I met with the captains for probably 4 hours or so in December about it. They asked me a number, and I said, my thought was 10 to 15 to give us a good pool of people to pull from, so you have them.
Well, I think, you know, clearly, the issue is interrelated. The absence of leadership in the departments is causing us to try and make decisions based on information. We don't know how it's going to work in the long run. If you had a police chief, you had a fire chief, I think you would have a much different recommendation coming forward. Someone who had to work in that department, and you know, I said it before, people talking to us tonight aren't the ones who are in danger of losing their jobs. Their jobs are secure. They're worried about who they're working with going forward. I think we owe it to the community, and I think we owe it to the professionals that we have in the fire department that we do a more thorough analysis. And I'm still in favor of us sitting down as a body and looking at start with the fire department. Let's bring in the leadership from the fire department. Let's bring in the superior officers as well as the rank and file. And let's hear what they are proposing to do to reach some efficiencies within that department and how they can operate structurally to make that work. And not all of that is negotiations. A lot of it is what this body is going to have to do with how you move forward with policy. I would like to hear it firsthand from the people who were in those positions.
And why exactly could that not have happened at any point in at least the last 2 years? Why could it not happen right now through the manager? If you want to have, what you're proposing is to have the entire council meet with representatives or leadership, well, that's what's happening right now.
Well, Rick,
the representatives are here, they're speaking, we're hearing them. You can't exclude the public from that. So what is it you're trying to accomplish, other than pretending that we haven't gone through the last 2 years, everyone knowing the financial situation and constraints we have, everyone knowing that we were reaching out and begging for people to give us information that had some value in terms of how things could be or couldn't be restructured. And having chiefs or not having chiefs doesn't disenable and hasn't disenabled the senior officers in the fire department from expressing their opinions, from giving us their information.
Yes,
And they
it
have,
has,
you know,
Rick.
to a man, no, it has not. To a man, they have
You
10,
can't
15, 20
negotiate
years in
it-
the department.
You can't negotiate in public. I mean,
We are
Councilman
not
Simpson
negotiating,
just
that's
came
the
up-
whole point.
Just came up with a solution, you know, that he threw out there. That, you know, could you start a salary at this? Could you,
Right, and how long have the negotiations been going? Well, let me rephrase that. How long have we as a body known that the firefighter's contract was up at the end of 2013? Answer, the whole time we were up here in 2013. At what point did you or Councilman Simpson ever suggest that you wanted the city manager to go into the negotiations and to propose a dramatically lower starting salary and changes to the step system and whatever else Andy's proposing now. Answer, never.
Because, Rick, I can't go talk to these people, the heads of the union, or anything like this, under this body, under this form of government.
And how,
You know
Andy,
that, Rick.
how, Andy, would that have prevented you from going to the manager if you believe that that was a viable
Because I was
alternative?
gathering facts and numbers. I didn't know how much a starting fireman paid and everything. I had to go get all that information.
Andy, it's in the firefighter's contract, which the manager gave us at the beginning of last year. It's not a mystery.
Rick, you can cross-examine everybody up here.
Right.
All right, but
Your
let's
mumbo-jumbo.
let's go forward. Let's make a decision as to where we're going. You know, once again, we're going to say, let's look at what's out there, and the next thing you know, you're going to have a bunch of people, hopefully they're going to be New Jersey residents, at the firehouse who nobody knows, and quite frankly, it seems like anybody from the island who has some ties here, for whatever reason, that's a problem now. They can't be a chief, they can't move forward in their departments. So I think we have a responsibility to do a better job in the analysis, and that's how I feel. Whatever you decide to do, obviously you had the votes to do it, but remember, there are ramifications to whatever you vote on.
Councilman Simpson, just so I could follow up.
Yes.
Several months ago, what you're describing is a two-tier contract, basically. What the haves, the ones that are here now and the ones that are coming in the door. It's referred to affectionately as a have and a have-not contract. That was actually suggested several months ago to the unions. I suggested. I asked that question, so it was something they'd be willing to explore. I was told no. Now, granted, the contract was closed and wasn't open, so now, as it's been pointed out,
Right.
negotiations are taking place.
Right.
That was asked several times by myself, to the captains and to the unions and to the membership as I talked to them. And that was something they said they were not interested in at that time. So it was explored among several suggestions over the course of the last several months. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear about that one.
Well,
Do you have any
if
idea
I
how-
had him in a room, I could talk to him. If I had him in a room, I could talk to him.
Just
Andy,
wanted
is
to know
that-
that it was pointed out. That's-
Great.
it was
Thanks,
addressed,
Dan.
that's all, sir.
Am I to conclude from that, Andy, that outside this chamber, you really don't have conversations with the members of the fire or police departments about their work conditions or negotiations?
Well, last meeting, you said I call Dan Howard on a daily basis. I didn't bring that up, Rick. You're bringing up nonsense.
I don't even know what you just said there, Andy, about Dan Howard on a daily basis, but
You said you have conversations on a daily basis with Dan Howard.
I said that
Yeah.
I have conversations with Dan Howard on a daily basis.
Absolutely you
Okay, that's totally wrong.
No, yeah. You're never wrong.
All right, once again, can we move forward with whatever decision is going to happen here? We need to, we have a salary ordinance, which is ordinance number 17 of 2013. We have a public hearing and adoption. At this time, we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to open the meeting for public comment on the salary ordinance. Salary ordinance only at this time. Mr. Papa?
Could you, Frank Papa?
Frank, I can't hear you. There you go.
Frank Papa, 105 Roosevelt Boulevard North. What does the average fireman make?
Frank, you have to...
What does the average fireman make, taking the whole fire department together? Is it not an average of $40 per hour?
I don't know what the average is.
I believe from my records that I collected, with all the pays and everything else, it averages out to $40 an hour. Now, I don't know about the firefighters, part-time firefighters or anything else. I'm talking about the EMTs. From the records that I acquired, when two EMTs go out, 2 out, 2 in. Is that correct?
I think there are 2 a.m. when they're talking about a fire, when they're talking
The union fire, the guy from the fire department's here. He made a statement.
That's on a fire.
On a fire,
That's
Frank, not
truck.
on a fire.
Talking about the EMTs.
Right.
He made a statement they were $15, $17 an hour. The going rate for an EMT in Atlantic County is between 15 and 18. They work for the hospitals. They work all over the county. Our firefighters, when they go out on an EMT call, 2 men, that's $80 out. 2 men have to come in. What's a 2 out, 2 in?
Frank, you're confusing the fire protocol with the EMT response.
Who comes in with if the 2 firefighters go out?
No one.
Nobody comes in? So it's $80 an hour.
Right.
We could have 2 EMTs for $36 an hour.
Well, Frank, we'll send the $18 an hour guys to your house.
They were my house. The EMTs that were $18 an hour were at my house. When they sent them from mainland, that our EMTs couldn't do the oxygen test, I had to pay extra for the other EMTs.
Frank, they're paramedics. I don't know what they...
Paramedics, okay? They came and did it. We got a cost saving there that we could save. If you use a part-timer, send one part-timer out with a fireman. The excuse that he don't know the streets is ridiculous. We just hired 8 policemen. All 8 of them live out of town. Why? Couldn't get qualified policemen in town.
Jennifer, did you hire 8 policemen?
There's 8 policemen, the late hires. The last 8 hires.
I don't know what the average of the last 8 hires.
You check them, you'll find out they're out-of-towners. They know the streets. So that's a feeble excuse to use, that they don't know it. They're going to perform the same duties and the same job as our EMTs. Because they live out of town, they're not qualified. That's a false assumption. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. Mrs. Phillips. It's crowded.
Excuse me, Ann H. Phillips, 308 27th Street. It's been a long time since we've had an analysis of the salary ordinance, and such a review is essential. And I think what has been taking place here is good in terms of looking at it very carefully and not just perfunctorily passing it at the beginning of each year. We all agree we're in a down economy. Governments must become more cost-effective, and that means being able to adapt and change. Having a salary ordinance such as this one that provides flexibility to management regarding positions and salaries makes sense. Employee costs here in Brigantine are 2/3 of our budget. Governments can no longer simply raise taxes when the revenue does not equal the proposed expenditures. The status quo is simply not sustainable. Taxpayers are not going to put up with constant tax increases. The money isn't there. I think you're acknowledging that, at least up in council, and I think everybody in this room needs to recognize, acknowledge the fact that we have a financial crisis and we have a shortage of revenue, and we cannot just go to the taxpayers again to correct that. And we recognize that, everybody here, and that goes for all the public sector unions, residents, and we work with it and work together. I haven't seen, at least I'm not aware, that a great deal of that is taking place, but keep in mind the status quo is not sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Phillips. Yes, John?
John Pucci, 100 Sheridan Square. I've heard council members ask for ideas on how to save money. I've heard council members say taxes, fiscal responsibility, and I've seen actions taken to eliminate police and fire chiefs to save money, eliminate positions. Well, if you're serious on that philosophy, I have an idea for you. We don't need 7 people up there making decisions for the city of Brigantine. Your average salary is $9,000 to $10,000. If this council went to 5 members instead of 7 members into perpetuity, this city would be saving $20,000 a year. Now, there's an idea for you. And I would ask for the solicitor's opinion if, under city council form of government, if there can be 5 members instead of 7, or what other forms of government you can have 5 elected officials. There is one. It's called the committee form of government. And there's other bedroom communities in this county next to Brigantine that have higher budgets or more square yards, more square miles, and higher populations, and they do quite well with just 5 elected officials instead of 7. So as you navigate through your decision-making process, I think you should look in the mirror and say, well, if I need to do it over here for the taxpayers' good, maybe I need to do it here, and maybe Brigantine could be just as well off with 5 elected officials instead of 7 to save taxes. That's what this is all about. Does anybody need a smoke break here tonight? Let's have a smoke break, okay? Let's have a smoke break. Because I think it's unprofessional and bad conduct that somebody, a city employee or elected official
John.
in front of this dais
John, we're on
during the
the
meeting,
salary ordinance.
go take a smoke break while
John.
it's supposed to be running the city meeting.
John, we're on the salary ordinance, if you would.
The city manager walks out of this meeting as it's being conducted and goes outside and takes a smoke break.
John.
That's not what she's getting
John,
paid for.
Please, we're on the salary ordinance right now. We'll have another public portion at the end of this where you can express your opinions on anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Hello, my name is John Livesey. I'm at 203 9th Street North, resident here in Brigantine, and I just want to address this part-time salary issue. To bring in part-timers as a cost-saving measure is the wrong thing to do. I spent 26 years in the Coast Guard Reserves as a part-timer. I retired and got out because as the duties expanded and the area of operation expanded, I didn't feel as a part-timer I could adequately train to know my area of operation, and I felt that either my life or my crew members' lives or the people I was responsible to save's lives could be in danger by that attitude. Now, I was not a part-timer as a cost-saving measure. As a reservist, we're used for other things. We could be brought in to help out in other responsibilities as oil spills, wartime, and other factors. But the point I'm trying to make is to bring in part-timers in police and fire, beach patrol, as a cost-saving measure, in my opinion, is the wrong thing to do. Because the big thing that people have, yes, we're all trained the same. I had to do the same requirements that my regular partners had to do. I had to drive the boat the same. I had to know where all the equipment was. But the major factor that I didn't have enough time underway was the area familiarization of the community that I was operating in. And I think that's a major factor when you're talking about seconds to save someone's life. And if it's your grandson or your daughter or your son that needs to be saved, I think you want those people to know exactly where they have to go and not take that extra second or two to check a GPS out to find out where a building is. So as a cost-saving measure, going part-time is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Augie?
Augie Peltonen, 203 11th Street North. My son Sven, as you might know, is a firefighter in Atlantic City. He has excellent benefits and a pension plan. I was just wondering, a question here. If you have part-timers with no health benefits and they get hurt on the job, injured, God forbid, are they not covered by health insurance? Answer,
Do you want me
please.
to answer that? If they're hurt on duty, it would be workers' comp. If off duty, they would be required to have their own health benefits.
So it would be on-the-job injury or illness, right?
On the job, it would go through our GIF, which is a workers' comp program.
Okay. Second question. Say there are 7 firefighters that are union members right now, and eventually, in years to come, they want to retire. Will they be replaced by part-timers, which will make us into a volunteer fire company?
Do you want me to answer that?
If you know the answer.
Well, I can answer to some degree. I don't believe, speaking from the past with Chief Hall or with Director Howard, that, and other people, that we really can go to a full volunteer or part-time group. You know, right now I'm looking maybe at one platoon that we might be able to supplement from full-time firefighters to part-time, but I think it's something that we'd have to work into slowly to see where it would go. I don't believe at any point that we'd be fully volunteer. In fact, what would end up happening in my vision is that if we could bring on part-time people, they would be able to move into the full-time positions if, you know, they came in the amount of hours that they were required to come in, went through all the training as necessary and things of that nature.
Okay, another question. I've heard from the community this is called union busting. Maybe somebody could clarify that terminology.
Yeah, I can clarify what union busting typically means. Union busting is known as an effort by management to generally try and remove or decertify a union in a workplace. None of that's happening here, Augie. In every scenario that we've thought about, if you bring in part-timers, they are a minority, and as the manager just said, ideally they would work out and you'd move them into the full-time positions as they happen. The union is, in a real sense, irrelevant to the whole discussion. The union's going to continue, and their members are going to continue to negotiate and get whatever they negotiate for. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Norm?
Norm Winter, 600 East Beach. I just want a couple questions. Mr. Perillo said that these part-timers will work 30 hours a week. Is that it?
Norm, I was referring to the analysis that was given to us today by the city manager.
Okay. How many hours a week are these people supposed to work?
The analysis is based on 30 hours. That's not written in stone at this moment because we're looking at various different scheduling options, but it would have to be 30 or less. So after that point, 30 and above, they're required to have health benefits.
Okay, now that's my question too.
Right.
If they are out on a fire call, God forbid, and their 30 hours are up, do they go home?
No, it's based on not a weekly average. It's based on 30 hours per week on a yearly average, so that it can be something that's made up.
It's not, you don't go by the week?
No, it's not a week. It's based on 30 hours per week, but when it's analyzed and audited, it's on the yearly basis. So, we can work with
If they're
that.
over their 30 hours during a week, do they get overtime or pay time, or is it still straight time, and they're not eligible for benefits?
No, they wouldn't be eligible for health benefits or a pension expense. Now, so things such as overtime and everything that needs to be looked at.
Okay. My next question is, Mr. Howard, I think, is a retired police officer, correct? Oh, I don't know who I talked to, but it's a
Yes.
retired police
Yes.
officer. He's getting a pension from the state, correct?
Mr. Howard would have to
Correct.
answer that.
Correct, yes.
All right, he's getting hospitalization from the state.
No, sir, well, part of it, yes, sir, I pay for the rest of it.
Well, we're not, or the city, is the city paying for his hospitalization or any of his benefits when the contract was made?
We don't have a contract with Director Howard, but no, he gets no health benefits or pension.
You don't get no benefits at all?
No,
And
he gets the straight
He
salary.
doesn't live here in the city, I presume?
No.
He lives out of town. Does he get gas and mileage for his car?
He gets no gas mileage. He doesn't, receive any stipend for mileage.
So-
He doesn't have a city car, nothing.
Okay, if this is passed, he'll get between $70,000 and $100,000, roughly, if this is passed. He already gets a pension. Wouldn't it be nice if he donated $50,000 back to the city? He's already getting a pension probably of $60,000.
I think with the amount of work that Director Howard does, he's worth every bit of that 70,000.
Well, thank you.
Okay, folks, we're on the salary ordinance. Anyone has additional comments on the salary ordinance? Rose? Yes, okay. If you would, state your name and address for the record.
Eileen Weiner, 600 East Beach Avenue, Brigantine. I have a question for Jennifer. I guess it's for the part-time firemen. They're going to be required to have gone through fireman training and EMT certification before they become a part-time person in Brigantine?
Yes, actually, that's part of the savings, because on our current hiring list for the full-time firefighters, they're not required to go through the academy, which is a cost to the taxpayers. However, for the part-time, we're requiring them to have academy experience behind them, at least 3 years of experience, and an EMT certification.
Well, at 30 hours a week, if they get 52 weeks a year, they're going to make $23,400
Right.
before taxes.
Right.
They couldn't live in Brigantine.
Yeah.
They'd have to have Section 8 housing to be able to afford to live in Brigantine. I can't imagine people causing a traffic jam on the bridge coming over with applications for a job that's not going to support them.
We're having a lot of interest. We have about 10 applications in already.
did?
Yeah, and some of the applications are from people with a lot of experience, 10 years experience in various fire departments.
Now, are these volunteers or are they paid? They're in paid departments.
I don't know.
As everybody knows, the majority of the state of New Jersey is provided fire service by volunteers. And they do it very well, as everybody knows. All the applicants I've gotten are all from active volunteer members, at least, again, on paper, they haven't been spoken to. I think one member was 13 years of service, I believe. I think he was 2 or 3 of them were officers in their volunteer companies. A couple of them are volunteer officers in their volunteer companies. So again, on paper alone, they present some interesting experience levels. Again, that's on paper alone. But again, that League of Municipalities website has only been active since June or January 7th, and it's only the 15th now, so.
Very good. Thank you. Rose?
Rose Roberts, 903 Saracen Road. Andy mentioned $80,000 for a fire inspector. Could you explain that position? Is that the same thing that's in the salary ordinance as fire official?
Yes.
Okay, is that someone within the fire department?
No.
No.
As far as I understand, it's going to be a civilian.
Well, no, right now it's Bill Baldwin, and what happens is when we have the fire official in the union contract, if they move over from the fire department to become the fire official, they get a 12% increase in their rates. Now, we do have the option to fill that position with a civilian title instead of a sworn officer title.
Can that person go out on a fire?
No.
So we're spending another $80,000 to replace a fireman that could drop his pencil when he's doing his inspections and go out on a fire?
Actually, you have a good point, because in the past, the fire official never did that. Yeah.
An ambulance.
In the past, that was never done here. The fire official just did the fire official work. Actually, I would like to thank Director Howard for actually telling the fire official that he was to take runs during
So are
calls.
we going to spend another $80,000? So that means we have 105 and another 80. Wouldn't it just be easier to hire some more firemen?
Well, actually,
that could actually do, that could, I mean, to have a body in the fire department that can actually fight a fire or drive an ambulance or save someone's life?
It should definitely be considered, but actually we had a DCA representative down yesterday who felt that we were spending too much in the fire prevention department because of the salary. So it is something we're looking at. It's nothing that we have decided at this point, but it is something that was
Do
in
you take all the recommendations from the DCA? Have you taken all the recommendations so far from the DCA?
I take any recommendation that the DCA gives me as very significant. I can't say that I will always take all the recommendations, but they do govern us. So yes, I
Well, I
consider
think the $80,000 would be better spent on someone that could save someone's life rather than push a pencil all day long. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Mrs. Kitty?
I neglected.
Kitty, if you would, state your name and address for the record.
Kitty Williams, 419 West Shore Drive, Brigantine, New Jersey. I came here initially to support the fire department because I happen to love the fire department. And I don't think these people realize what these firemen actually do. I stood 5 years ago on West Shore Drive